Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. This honorable commission is now in session pursuant to adjournment. May God bless this country and God bless this county. Mr. Chairman.
Our invocation this evening will be done by Commissioner David Klein.
Bow your heads, please. Heavenly Father, creator of this earth and the universe around it, we ask you to be with us tonight as we consider the budget for the next year and all that that entails. We ask you to help us have civil discord, help us to be mindful of others, and help us to come up with a reasonable solution for all the things that we discuss and debate tonight. We ask this in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Remain standing, please, for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Each commissioner record your presence.
We have two absences this evening. Commissioner Harris will be absent. He's recovering from surgery, so our prayers are with him and with his family. And Commissioner Boyd, I believe, is still out of town. However, the majority vote tonight will remain at 13 for anything to pass, and a 2/3 vote will be 16 of the 24, regardless of the absences. Mr. Mansfield.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Before we adopt our agenda, I would like a motion to sever the budgets, county general from the schools, with the county coming first.
All right, a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign? No. I'm saying that the ayes have it unless someone wants to have that on the board.
I challenge the vote of the chair.
All right. Let's place that on the board for a vote then.
Point of information, Mr. Chair, are we voting on the challenge?
Yeah. Yes.
Each commissioner record your vote.
This vote, and maybe I misunderstood Commissioner Mansfield. This will be whether you want to sever or not. Okay. So.
Can you change the?
You can change until we're closed. You can change.
I'm trying to change my vote.
All right, hold on, folks. We're going to solve this by just starting all over, Madam Clerk.
Each commissioner record your vote.
With 14 votes, the two will be severed. Please make note of that, Commissioner Shove. We have at this time recognition of the public. Yes. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Now I want to remind everyone that we have 5 minutes max, and my feelings will not be hurt if you want to take less than 5 minutes, but you have a maximum of 5 minutes to speak. Ruth Fennell. Yes, if you'll please give your name, Ruth, and address.
Okay, my name is Ruth Fennell. My address is 1049 Blue Jay Way in Gallatin, Tennessee. Almost everyone here tonight is here for one reason, and that's money. We have two competing priorities right now, commonly referred to as teachers and/or bleachers. I believe there's general consensus among everyone that we would like to see the school district wages go higher, and the state and county commission have already allocated money to do that. We'll see how tonight goes, but the elephant in the room is the same kind of blackmail tactics that were used 10 years ago when the schools were unexpectedly and unnecessarily shut down over funds. The reality is that the money to give teachers and other raises in the school districts has already been provided. We should consider that a done deal. Any threat to hold teacher and staff money hostage is a shameful display of poor leadership. And I don't want to seem rude, but it seems to me that the rally today and any display of faux outrage, misdirected anger, is just a way to manipulate people into an emotional frenzy, just like 10 years ago when we had that situation happen. Every single person who is here tonight has been to a Sumner County school over the last decade, or worked at a school, or had children attending a school. And anyone who's done that should ask themselves, how did we allow our facilities to get to this stage? How do we allow them to get that bad? Where were parents, teachers who should have been raising the alarm years ago about things being allowed to degrade? Why weren't you speaking up years ago? Why weren't you talking to the director? Why weren't you talking to the school board, the administrations, attending school board meetings? Why are we now just holding a rally when you should have been doing that years ago to get things repaired or maintained? How did this suddenly become such an issue when people were using and seeing these facilities and kept silent? We should have never allowed this to reach this stage. Now, some of you may say, well, my kid just started going to that school. We've only been there a couple years, or they were afraid of being demonized. And based on the meetings a couple months ago, we do know of parents who did try to bring up some issues and were threatened with retaliation against their school teams. It's part of the record. So I understand, but let's just admit that people knew, closed their eyes until it couldn't be ignored anymore. And for anyone who doesn't know me and says, well, you can't point fingers, what have you done? I have spoken about misdirected funds that were wasted on lawsuits. I have attended and spoken at school board meetings and county commission meetings, so I'm not asking or saying anything that I have not personally done. As for any potential tax increase, let's get that off the table right now. Some of you will say on social media that you'll gladly pay more in taxes to help the schools. Thank you for that. Did you know that there are 2 different accounts set up in the county to do just that? You pay all you want as often as you want. I have already donated to those accounts. So again, I've done it. Where's you? We know that Sumner County has multiple multimillionaires living here who could just write a check and never miss a single dollar. Where are they? Also, but we have, according to the 2020 census, 16.9% of our population is 69 years or older. That's 32,000 people that live in this county. 10.7 are listed at the poverty level. That's 1 out of 10 people in Sumner County live in poverty. And while paying another $20 or $100 in taxes for some of us might not be a big deal, for those seniors that could be choosing between food or money. I just don't understand how people can be so flippant to just say, well, let's just raise taxes. No. Did you know that 22% of family households in Sumner County are run by females with no spouse? 22%. 14% are run by men with no spouses. That is 1/3 of the households in Sumner County are single income. Some may be very well off, others are working multiple jobs to just try and pay the bills. I think everybody understands the toughness of the economy right now, struggling to pay fuel, gas, food, clothes, school supplies. Walgreens announced they were closing 600 stores today. Companies are struggling, people are struggling. People don't have a lot of financial flexibility, and the impact on any increase on their cost of living needs to be seriously discussed and considered. And you can't say that they will just get a waiver because there's very strict criteria for that. We just need to make sure that my solution, which is simple with common sense, you start with the money you have. Money has been approved. Start there. Do it, the repairs in stages. That's common sense. You do it on your own budget. Let's do it here. Degradation of facilities didn't happen overnight. It won't be fixed overnight. And if you're upset, then look in the mirror, blame the people who allowed it to get to this point, and be grateful for the ones who are trying to fix it with common sense and not a bottomless wallet. Anyone who has a conflict of interest should just abstain, pay the staff, and then address the schools and the repairs. Thank you.
Thank you. I did forget to say that I would prefer, not you, Ruth, to say that we would like to have no response after speakers. That just takes up unnecessary time, either pro or con. Pascal Jovance. Is Pascal here?
He has his sick horse. He's waiting for a vet.
Stephen Sanders.
Mr. Chairman, thanks for the opportunity to speak. I really appreciate it. The first thing I want to read is, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So I want to first address, since it was addressed, this rally that we had was a peaceful assembly that is protected by the Constitution of the United States on private property. So I want to get that part out of the way first. We're not a mob. We're not Antifa. We're far from it. We're parents. We're teachers. We're administrators. We're people that care about our kids and our communities. I'm going to read some things. Dr. Langford, where's thy victory? One Sumner, where's thy sting? I think these three lone commissioners who voted against the fiasco are vindicated. We asked for options 5 months ago, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to read it all due to time. My family doesn't participate in the public school system. You let everybody opt out of paying for it if they don't want to. It's not their responsibility to pay for your kids or my kids' education. It's the responsibility of a parent. Education's not a right, it's a privilege. These are some of our existing county commissioners that are sitting in these chairs tonight. What an elitist mentality. What a slap in the face at every taxpayer that has children in the county. You know, the United Nations has even said that a human right is a public education. And we're the United States of America. We're not a third world country. So I want to get that part out of the way first. Being an American is the privilege. The education is the right. And we all owe it to our teachers, our staff, and our facilities. You guys have an opportunity to do something right here that hasn't been done in a very long time. And Mr. Chairman, I know you've tried for a very long time to be able to pay for facilities and teacher and staff raises. And we've had some very hard, difficult challenges over the past 40 years. We can do both. We don't have to raise taxes over the next 2 years. We're not asking for Cowboy Stadium here. We're not asking for Neyland Stadium. We're just asking for up-to-date facilities. We're not asking for anything that's crazy or outlandish. And forgive me if you're from Alabama, but if you look at a brand new school in the state of Alabama, they are all like Liberty Creek across the entire country. That's what's being built now. We're not even asking to be like Liberty Creek at all, and we appreciate their support. Absolutely we do, and we're glad that they came out to the rally. So I urge those of y'all that are sitting in those seats that have an open mind and aren't vindictive and don't have your own plan or your own ego, is to step those aside tonight and vote for this. 2 years from now, you don't want to be on the side of negativity and division. You want to be on the side of positivity and encouragement. And also, abstaining is basically a no vote. And if you're not able to make a vote, then I would highly suggest that you make a decision whether or not that you can stay and sit at a county commission meeting and keep abstaining on things. That's not what you were chosen or elected to do. Other than that, I'm glad that everybody's here. I appreciate everyone's time. I appreciate the hard job that each and every one of you have to do. But this is not outlandish at all. For the people that say it is, you're just not paying attention. Just look around, Google what's going on across this country with educational facilities. You know, we're not asking for something crazy here. We're really not. And if we were, I can tell you right now, if it was crazy, I would not be for it. But there's nothing on this agenda that's not crazy. It's very legitimate, and as a parent who has a cheerleader that will be a sophomore when she could even take advantage of these, I'm not even going to get to see her this year. She's going to be so far away. The only way I'm going to be able to see her is if I just stand on the sidelines and basically not watch the game. These seniors at Beach, I'm going to tell you, they've been through COVID, 2 years of not being able to cheer where they're supposed to. So let's just put this to bed tonight, and I thank you all for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg Arias.
Greg Arias, 820 Hardin Street, Gallatin, Tennessee. I want to start by saying thank you to the lady that spoke earlier for the statistics on the numbers of single-parent families we have in this county. Now I want to tell you a story that goes along with those statistics that she gave you. This is my personal story. I grew up in a two-parent household with a father that was a decorated Vietnam vet and Purple Heart recipient. I lost him 3 years ago. What I gained from high school athletics, playing football and baseball, was something that taught me things that my dad tried, but he couldn't necessarily teach me. He couldn't teach me about teamwork. He couldn't teach me about the dedication that it took, physically, mentally, and emotionally, to play sports at two sports at a high level. He couldn't teach me dedication to the point that I learned playing high school sports. Okay? I had a coach in high school that took an interest in me. Why, I don't know. But to this day, that coach is still part of my life. I can call him right now, ask him a question, and he'll be there for me. All these single parents that we talked about, this lady mentioned, that have these children, what would it be 38 years after their graduation if that same coach is still there to support, encourage, and direct these students? We're not just talking about athletics. We're talking about life. We're talking about things that go beyond what's taught in the classroom. We're talking about band students as well. We're talking about cheerleaders, and we're talking about students in general that learn lessons from athletics that aren't taught in the classroom. I can't tell you the last time I conjugated a verb or diagrammed a sentence. But I can tell you the last time I used teamwork and the other things that I've done in my professional life. Some of those years spent as a police officer in this very city. Okay? So when I say these things, I'm speaking it from right here because I believe that the things that I learned and the coach that I had, that I still have today, who, by the way, when my father passed, was one of the first people to call me and console me and to talk to me and support me. We've got coaches in this school system that do the same thing for these kids. So if you want to talk about single parent families, talk about what these coaches are doing for some of these kids, players, band members, cheerleaders, and the rest, and what impact that can have. These are not just bleachers, folks. This is a place for the community to gather, for the athletes to participate, for the bands to perform. There's no special band thing other than the competitions that they attend, and a lot of people don't even go to those. So the only time these kids doing band that work their rear ends off get seen is on Friday night when they walk onto that field in that stadium with their community sitting there to support them. It's more than just athletics, and if you think it's all about just football, you're wrong. You need to rethink it. This is about a whole lot more. Thank you.
Kevin Rector.
I'm Kevin Rector from 113 Stoddard Street, and Jesus Christ said, do to other people what you want them to do to you. And really, when you take that in a nutshell, what it means is put yourself in somebody else's shoes before you decide how you're going to interact with them. And so, commissioners, I just invite you to do a little thought experiment with me, and let's put ourselves in a few different people's shoes tonight. You know, I think about the first people we need to put ourselves in their place is the taxpayers. Right? Because if this was going to trigger a tax increase and we were going to have to, nobody wakes up in the morning and says, man, I want to pay more taxes today. And there's a lot of legitimate reasons to keep our taxes low. And I think you guys have, I commend the fiscal responsibility that we've seen. But we've got the money in the bank to fund the school budget. And I would just encourage us to go ahead and do that. I want us to put ourselves in the shoes of that player who makes that catch in that end zone and scores that winning game, that touchdown that won the game. And that feeling of accomplishment and success might be the first time in their life they really accomplished something, and that might carry them on the rest of their life. Or we can put ourselves in the shoe of the kid who had the fumble, and he dropped the ball, and the team lost all their momentum, and he had to walk back to the sideline kind of holding his head down. And how did he learn the resiliency to get up, and when coach put him back in, to take the ball and march down the field? We can put ourselves in the shoes of that band student who's super nervous. They got pre-performance jitters. Their heart rate's going a little bit. It's almost halftime. But they know they marched and they practiced in the summer heat and they worked and they got through it and they heard the crowd cheer and they understood, you know, if I do some hard work, I can accomplish things. We can put ourselves in the shoes of that widow who spends a lot of time at home by herself, and her youngest kid graduated 20 years ago, but she never misses Friday Night Lights because, doggone it, that's her school. Or you can put yourself in the shoes of that parent who's sitting there watching their kid do the thing that they love to do. There's nothing like watching your kids do something that they love to do, whether they're good at it or whether they're pretty bad at it. We love our kids. Or how about all those kids, and there's so many of them, they're going to come to that football stadium and they won't even know what's happening on the field. They're not sporty, they're not athletic, they don't care at all about who wins or loses, but they know that night they saw their friends and they were seen by their friends. Because at the end of the day, we're not talking about building a stadium where people play sports, right? Because who wins with what score? Only a few people are going to remember that. But what everybody's going to remember is that night they were part of a community. What you're doing is you're building community. Your job is to create spaces where community happens. And we need to have facilities that we can be proud of. We can have some civic pride in the places where our kids gather and where our families gather and where we rub shoulders with each other. And quite frankly, my kids go to station camp. You can make an argument that we're not getting a stadium out of this. Why should we care? Because I want to put myself in the shoes of the parents of the Beach and the Portland and the Hendersonville families. If our stadium had to be redone, I'd want y'all to build us a great stadium. So I want to build a great stadium for Beach. I don't want adequate facilities for our kids. I want excellent facilities for our kids. We can do this. We can get it done. And I thank you for your time.
Jay Ingram.
Jay Ingram, 755B, Newton Lane, Gallatin. I wanted to start out just by saying, I wasn't going to say this, but once again, we get here tonight and it opens up with the parents and the teachers and the administrators and the coaches that are here tonight, and even, I guess, the kids being scolded about where we've been and what we've been doing. I'm just going to talk about me, but when I graduated from law school and moved back to Gallatin, I got on the quarterback club board in the year 2000. I did not have any children at that time, and none of my children went to high school until just about 4 years ago. My son is now graduated from MTSU. My daughter just graduated from Gallatin High School, and I moved to the University of Tennessee. So now I'm back in a position again where I don't have any kids at Gallatin High School. But I've been a supporter as a citizen, as a quarterback club member. I've been quarterback club president twice. As far as sounding the alarm, we've been sounding the alarm for years. No matter who the school board was, who the director of schools was, the county commissioners were, we've been letting people know. We've gone to the press, we've gone to politicians, we've tried to do it ourselves. I personally have helped raise millions of dollars over the last 24 years, and I'm not saying that to brag. I'm just saying, people say, where have y'all been? Where have y'all been? I'll say it like I said it back when we were fighting over the $15.8 million. I've been raising a family and running a successful business. Some of y'all ought to try it on the county commission. You know, I don't know what y'all are doing, but you're not leading as county commissioners, I don't think, and doing what these people out here want you to do. I said it before and I'll say it again. This is an easy vote. You can do the right thing by the students and the teachers and these schools, and it's also the politically expedient thing, the thing that will help you maybe hold on to your office. If you don't vote the way that the will of the people is, you're going to be voted out in 2026. I'm just telling you now, and I'll say I told you so when it happens. Some of you are going to get voted out regardless how you vote tonight. But do the right thing. Do the right thing and support these kids. When I go to other counties, Wilson County, Robertson County, wherever I go to a football game that Gallatin's playing in, take Green Hill, for example, brand new modern high school, turf field, lights are going on off like Neyland Stadium and like Bryant-Denny Stadium, Alabama. Our kids are looking around like, why do we not have something like this? Sumner County is just as affluent as Wilson County, or Robertson County, or Davidson County, and we don't have to raise taxes. That's just a ruse to try to scare people. Old people, people on fixed incomes, say, oh, they're gonna raise your tax, gonna raise your taxes. You know, people saying, well, I don't have any kids. Everybody almost had children at one time, and almost everybody was a student in a public school. To say that it's not my kid, so I don't care, that's very self-centered and selfish, and that's not what Jesus would do. I don't believe that. Jesus helped the least of these. My alma mater, largest high school in Sumner County, only 6A school, most diverse school in the county, the oldest school building in the county, as much tradition and history as anybody, and the students at Gallatin High School do not deserve less, and neither do any of these other kids. And the best thing that's come out of all this is I got a bunch of friends at Hendersonville and Beach and Station Camp and Liberty Creek and Portland and White House and Westmoreland that I didn't have before. And we're a lot stronger together than we are separate. That's why I like the one Sumner name and the team Sumner name. And you know, the county commission's done something that nobody could do. Unite the towns of Gallatin and Hendersonville and unite all these football rivals. And when we were here about the $15.8 million, I said, you know, I don't see how in the world this is that hard of a vote, that you can't just look at this and say, we've got the money, it's the right thing to do. What is one of the biggest functions of government in America? It's funding public education so that our kids can have a better future. You know, to quote Whitney Houston, the children are our future. I mean, if we don't educate these kids, you're going to incarcerate them down the road. Ask any of these law enforcement officers in here. Education is a great equalizer. If you're a business owner, you've got to be pro public education because this is where your future employees are coming from. Why do you think all these companies come to Franklin? It's because they have the best school system in the state. If we want good corporate headquarters, white-collar, high-paying jobs, we need the best school system in the state. And we should not settle for less. We should demand it, demand excellence. We're just talking about safety and adequacy here tonight, but I want the best for all of our kids, all of your kids. And that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm speaking out about it. And being here tonight's a lot more fun than chopping brush over at Gallatin Stadium. Thank y'all.
Charles Haygood.
I'm Charles Haygood. I live at 225 South Thompson Lane. Gouletsville, technically, we call it Shackle Island, where I am. To be honest, to be up here tonight, it's a little bit like Groundhog Day. It seems like I was just up here not long ago talking about the same things. I'm not going to continue to reiterate the same thing over and over. In my opinion, this has been way harder than it should be. To me, it's just obvious that we need funding for new stadiums and bleachers that have been long neglected, in our case at Beach, 40 plus years old. It took it falling in to even have this conversation, quite frankly, and we've been talking about this for a long time. This is not something we just dreamed up and decided at Chick-fil-A a couple days ago to have a rally about. This was bringing people together to talk about the funding of our schools and the funding of our teachers. This is a no-brainer, folks. And I want to be clear, I'm not part of a mob. I kind of took it as a compliment initially because I didn't think I looked that tough. But I thought, well, I'm a mob, and we all know you can believe everything on Facebook. So for a while I believed it, but it didn't take long to get past it. And I'm not a hippo or a rhino or whatever else we've been called in support of our schools. We just want what's best for our communities, and we want what's best for our teachers. And it's time for us to step up. You, as elected officials tonight, you have a great opportunity to leave a legacy. No one ever remembers those in leadership that does nothing, and their default to anything is a no. No one remembers those people. It's the people that does great things, for our community. Now, I'm really talking tonight to those few that didn't come in here with their mind made up. Now, some would not approve this if their life depended on it. Even if Dr. Langford donated the money himself, they'd say his bank was too liberal, they shouldn't take the check. I mean, I truly believe that. The hate toward him is so bad, and believe me, he and I have had some heated discussions over the years, but he and I talk about it. We don't air it out over Facebook, and we certainly don't defame people's character. So tonight, I'm appealing to those that are not sure, and I want to tell you, I appreciate the due diligence that you've taken to think about this. What's best? What's best financially? What's best for our schools? What's best for our teachers? And I understand tough decisions have to be made, but in my opinion, this is a no-brainer. This does not require a tax increase. We can, again, it's in Facebook, it must be so. But that is not the case here. We can't believe that. Pure rhetoric. So tonight I ask and I plead with you as a body to approve this, approve the budget, to provide much needed pay to our teachers. That is the most thankless job at times, and the hardest working people that I know are teachers. So we have to support them no matter what. But we also have infrastructure that's crumbling. We have facilities that's been long neglected, despite the fact that we've talked about it for many years. So in my opinion, this is something that you can do. You can leave a legacy tonight, and we ask for your vote if you're undecided. Thank you.
Kevin Baker.
Kevin Baker, 424 A.B. Wade Road. It's kind of a sad commentary when we're sitting here talking about the kind of facilities that Alabama and Mississippi and everybody else is building, when I suspect that the number and the percentage of their children reading at grade level are similar to those in Tennessee, which is pathetic. But that's the state of things in the United States, I guess, today. I was going to start out by talking about a story almost 175 years ago of a famous Tennessean, but then I realized it appears that we don't even remember what happened 10 months ago. I'm pretty certain that many of you were in the room when, in October of 2023, this county commission approved $15+ million for the stadium repairs. And here we sit now. Are those stadiums built? But yeah, we're asking for more money. Back then we were told that the money had to be approved immediately or the projects wouldn't get done and sporting events would suffer. And don't you remember the director of schools promising us that the projects would be done on time, on budget, and that he would be responsible for getting them done? 10 months later, we're sitting here and we still don't have those stadiums done. This isn't about whether we want to do something or not. It's when we say we're going to do it, we do it, and we are transparent about what we said we're going to do. And why is it now that if there's extra cost overruns or project mismanagement money is not approved, that teachers, bus drivers, and janitors won't get their pay raises? What happened to the $7.6 million from the state and the $7.5 million from this county commission in this year's budget to provide for teachers' raises? That money is in there, but yet we're holding it over our heads to get more money for the stadiums that were supposed to have been started 10 months ago with money that was already approved? I don't quite understand. But we need to also think about something else that's going on. Year over year, for at least the last 5 years, the schools have asked for funding increases averaging about 6% per year. During that same time period, they've been getting about 10.15% year over year. The school administration and the school board have complete autonomy with regards to how they spend that money. Where did all those tens of millions of dollars go? And why is it now so urgent that teachers get pay increases? Right? We're holding this whole issue hostage for pay increases. Shouldn't they have been getting pay increases all along? The money was earmarked. You can look at the records. The state gave us a lot of money. The county's given us a lot of money to give pay increases. Where's that money going? Especially seeing as how aren't teachers and children the two most important things in our education systems? And also, how come now this is just like 2019, okay? The only solution to giving teachers more money was to take it from the citizens. Now you might say, well, this isn't going to be a tax increase. Well, the extra money comes from the taxpayers, right? They ultimately were the ones that paid that money in. What happens when sales tax revenues drop because the economy goes deeper into a recession? Where does the money come from when the fully funded school system's maintenance of effort needs to be held? All right, we're sitting on an economic cliff. If the economy tanks, where are we going to get that money? That's going to be a tax increase. And if the county commission takes $5.4 million out of the unassigned capital fund balance, where does the money come from for things like building out a new courtroom for the new judge, or finishing the courthouse parking garage, or how about fixing the runoff issue over at the Liberty Creek campus? And what happens next October, or next January, or next spring, when all of a sudden these projects aren't done and they're running over costs? Where are we going to get that money from? We keep taking it from all these other capital projects. Commissioners, you are responsible for the proper management of the county's finances. You also have every right to ask to see what the money that is being requested is going to pay for. I request that you approve the budget that included the original school funding of $7.6 million from the state and $7.5 million from the county to pay for teacher pay increases. What the director of schools and the school board decide to do with that increased funding is their responsibility. If you choose to spend it on if they choose to spend it on fancy facilities over and above what was originally presented back last October and not give teachers pays, well, that's on them. The budget as adopted should not include the requested $5 million. The director of schools and the school board have consistently received more money than they originally requested. They need to learn how to properly manage their projects and live within their allotted funding. Thank you very much.
Joe Swofford.
Good evening. I just want to point out that the constituents have been speaking since November. They're still speaking now. And sadly, some of the commissioners are still ignoring those same constituents. Recent primaries have shown what constituents want. They want these facilities, decent school facilities, as compared to Wilson, Davidson, Williamson, and in actuality, the votes aren't that close either, if you think about it. Opponents of the facility funding recently had a social media post about I don't know if you saw it or not, there was a high school in Texas just approved a $35 million stadium. Yeah, that was one stadium for $35 million. And they took the opportunity to state that Dr. Langford, if he saw that, he might want several. Keep it away from him, they said. But in actuality, the post just said, wow, we can get 3 using reserves and a one-time exception for $20 million versus $35 one stadium, and we're not raising taxes either. I urge the commission to tonight finally take pride in the county and do the right thing and not hold up progress for spite, as some are doing. The Budget Committee has worked and done their job with the Board of Education to find a solution the community is behind. Please follow the will of those you represent. Appreciate your time and the opportunity to speak tonight.
Gracie Oliver.
Mr. Hyde, Commission members, my name's Grace Oliver. I live at 104 Liberty Court, Hendersonville, Tennessee. I probably have lived in Sumner County more time than anyone probably in this audience. To my last birthday, it's been 72 years. My parents graduated from Sumner County Schools, 1941. My brothers and myself graduated Hendersonville High. My 5 nieces and nephews, Hendersonville High, Sumner County. And at least 6 of my 12 great nieces and nephews will probably graduate from Sumner County Schools. So our blood runs really with Sumner County. I'm here tonight because I, too, encourage you to pass the budget. Spend the money, pass the budget. I mean, I know a lot of you. I've known you for a long time. I know you want what's best for our children. I actually have 2 nieces that are now teaching in Sumner County and a nephew who just got elected to the school board. I'm very proud of that. I, myself, was in Sumner County schools for 40 years. 40 years, long time. Loved every minute of it. Loved it. Now, I'm not going to stand up here and give you all kinds of percentages, because Ms. Dam there, she knows I'm not that good with that. But anyway, I have a brother that's a judge, too, in Sumner County. But I'm proud to be from here. I want what's best for the children of Sumner County. I never had any children. But I had a whole bunch of children when I was with Sumner County Schools. I guarantee you. I had the kind of job where I didn't deal with the most elite kids. I dealt with the ones that were less fortunate. I dealt with the homeless kids. I dealt with the poor kids. I dealt with kids that had discipline problems. But you know what? I liked them. I loved them. I loved my job. And I loved the people that I worked with. The teachers in this county deserve more money. Sumner County is a progressive, growing, great county, and we need to keep the teachers that we have. We don't need to lose them to Davidson County or Mississippi or Alabama. We need to keep those teachers. About the facility, we need the best facilities that we can have. We don't want things happening in our system that's happened to in other states. The bleachers fall down, 20 people get hurt, 20 people die. We don't want that. And another thing, I always look at school safety. We need the best school safety possible in Sumner County. We don't want all that junk happening that's happening in other places. And believe me, we're not immune to it. We have got to have school safety. We've got to have it. Everybody needs to cooperate. We need to stay off of social media, in my opinion, talking about each other. And I say, spend money. You can't take it with you. Spend it on the people that are educating our children. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott Langford. All right.
A little hard of hearing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We know that we've got each other. We've got that special love. We've got that total dedication to be the best people and players possible. But most of all, we've got pride, Blue Devil pride. Men, as you pray, pray in your own way. Pray not to win, for God willing you shall. Pray that no one on either team is injured. Pray to give 100% of your mind, body, and soul. Thank God you can play for White House High School. And we as coaches, thank God that he's allowed us to coach you. Men, good luck. God bless you. But most of all, we love you. For 4 years, I prayed that prayer every Friday night. Coach Jeff Porter taught that to us, and we recited it and we took it to heart. And for many of my teammates, it was the first time they had an adult look them in the eye and say, I love you and I want the best for you. Our coaches do that every day. I want to thank you. It's not easy sitting in these seats and making these votes. I appreciate the time that you put in and the research that you do and talking to constituents and hearing their needs and concerns. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for the work that you do. I know it's often thankless. I know that you hear a lot more negatives than positives, but thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for hearing. I do deeply appreciate it. I want to thank Commissioner Schoaf. You know, we live in an age where trust is broken in our political system. I appreciate the fact that beginning in April, May, we began working together to try to find a common sense way forward to meet the needs of our community, and I'm thankful for him. You know, he went above and beyond what he had to do. He came over to the school board and spoke, and I appreciate the fact that he had the courage to do that. It's not easy to walk into a different governing body where you may not have as many friends as you do in the other, and I'm thankful and appreciative of Commissioner Schoaf for doing that. Accountability and responsibility. We heard a lot of that. I stood here last year in October and told you that I would take responsibility. It breaks my heart that we didn't get done. The hardest phone calls I made were in February before a school board meeting. The easiest thing for me to have done then was to have let it slide, pretended like we were going to build the stadiums and get on the other side of the school board races. But that's not right, because I knew at that point we weren't going to be able to do it, and it was more important that we find a way to get our kids out on their football field on Friday night, whether that's band, whether that's football, whether that's a manager, whether that's a cheerleader, whoever it is, a kid carrying the flag in the spirit section. Every one of those games is important to them, and we have the opportunity to do it, and we did it, and I'm thankful for the school board for doing that. I want to thank Team Sumner. Let me say this on the record. I have absolutely nothing to do with Team Sumner. In fact, if you talk to many of them, Mr. Haygood mentioned this early, we've had lots of conversations where they've shared their thoughts and ideas very plainly, and we have sometimes disagreed. But I have a tremendous amount of respect for each of them because they love more than anything their school and their community and their kids. And it shows. It shows in everything that they've done. What this is an outpouring of what our communities have demonstrated for decades, and that's a deep love for the schools and for the kids and for the opportunities that sports and extracurricular activities provide for those kids. Team Sumner is that outpouring. Team Sumner extends, though, just beyond the football field. If you look around tonight, you'll see our SROs here providing security. Every day you walk into one of our schools, you'll see a group of men and women that will pour their hearts out and risk their lives to protect our kids. You'll see our EMS workers, our E911, EMA. You'll see so many of our county officials and their officers here tonight. This is about much more than just athletic facilities. It's about doing the right thing for a whole bunch of people to make it to where they can afford to live in Sumner County and live a better life, which is the prosperity that we've always tried to do by governing conservatively. What does this mean for the school system? 28.9 million in new employee raises. That's the largest figure ever committed to Sumner County teachers and support staff in raises. 28.9 million. It's a historic number. About 33% for our support staff. That's cafeteria workers, bookkeepers, custodians, bus drivers, maintenance workers, all those people that make our schools what it is. And this money is life-changing for them. Mr. Wise referenced in a school board meeting that there's a teacher right now waiting for the raises to be approved so that they can get their first house. They have to have the income verification before they can. These decisions have a direct impact on the lives of people that get up every day and serve our kids and serve our families. $27.4 million in capital. That includes athletic facilities, AEDs, safety additions. I believe, other than building a school, it's the largest capital investment in the history of Sumner County. We can do this with $33 million currently in the budget and unallocated capital with no tax increase this year or next year. I'll give you my word, no tax increase will come from the schools next year. We have the lowest tax rate in Middle Tennessee, $1.42, and we're in the bottom 10 of the state. We have low taxes, and we have the opportunity to do these historic things without raising taxes 1 penny in Sumner County. Thank you, Mr. Hyde.
Thank you. Charlene Allmiller.
Hi, I'm Charlene Onler, and I live at 143 Rulin Circle, Hendersonville, Tennessee, 37075. The purpose of the commission is to ensure a balanced budget and funding of our county services. Most of you ran on trying to keep taxes low. And this budget tonight, if approved in full, would not increase taxes, so you will have fulfilled your promise. If we look at the committee process, the first committees of the month determine if there is a need. The second ones are supposed to just determine if there's money to be able to do it for the budget. And then it comes to the commission as to whether we should. Here, there is a need. We have 3 schools. 1/3 of our high schools do not have a stadium. The budget committee did not pass this budget out 3 times, but that is not because we don't have the money, because you can't approve it without increasing taxes. It's because they just don't want you guys to approve it. They wanted to block you guys. This is not going to lead to a tax increase, and that is why I think that you should approve it. It should be no surprise to anybody that the schools do not have the dollars to be able to build 3 stadiums in this county. If the schools could build the stadiums on their own, they certainly would do it. They would do it every year. It is too heavy of a lift to ask the booster clubs to build stadiums. That is how we got into this mess. Somebody was asking, why wasn't it done 10 years ago? Well, 10 years ago, it's my understanding that PTOs were funding paper by the end of the year. Asking for stadiums was way too heavy of an ask at that time, and anytime there was increased funding for schools, the commission was badgered, the schools were badgered for spending too much money. Well, to the best of my knowledge, we have paper, which is good, thank you, and now we would like to have some stadiums for our students to be able to play in. Education is a constitutional right in Tennessee. Now, high school football or sports might not be in the Constitution. Don't kill the messenger. But I leave it up to you to tell the parents and students to say that they can't have stadiums because it's not in the Constitution, it's not a right. And a vote against this budget is saying exactly that. Schools sent a budget with $15 million additional in the minimum required going forward from the county called MOE, and that was rejected in May. The Board of Education approved a budget that had $7.5 million increase in minimum maintenance of effort and a $5.4 million in one-time capital. That was also rejected because it was said that that would be a recurring fund, the way that it was presented. So the Board of Education then approved a budget that met the $7.5 million MOE that was requested, and then made that contingent upon an agreement being reached for the $5.4 million of capital, one-time capital expenditures coming from the county funds, because that is the only thing that you guys said that you would accept. The Board of Education has fulfilled their obligations. This is your first opportunity as a commission to be able to approve the budget with the stadiums in it. Your vote will come up again and again and again. This county commission has not approved a single penny in new money of local tax dollars. Last year, the $15.8 million was a change from the reserves to the capital. It was not new tax dollars. Somebody had mentioned that the schools have complete autonomy to spend the overages that they get, but that is exactly not true. That's why we were here in October, asking for a budget increase, is because they can't spend those overages unless it's approved in a budget. This current budget has $56 million in reserves in it. The citizens have already paid these taxes. People are saying that this is going to be new money that's going to go out, and that's not true. The citizens have already paid it. You have the ability to pay for the courtrooms. You have the ability to pay for the highways. You have the ability to pay for the stadiums. And I'm not saying that you do it just because we have the money and it's burning a hole in your pocket. I'm saying because there's a need for it. And you have the rare opportunity to be able to fund it without raising taxes. You have the opportunity to be heroes. Please, please, use the funding, use our tax dollars to fund the community and approve this. Thank you.
Chris Shoemaker.
My name's Chris Shoemaker. I live at 1018 Silver Maple Lane in Portland. I want to address a couple issues. I'm going to change the topic off the bleachers for y'all tonight. I will ask that I'm going to throw some numbers at you that you're probably not ready for. Tonight on Resolution 2408-03, the appropriations to nonprofits. The Highland Volunteer Fire Department, they provide a very valuable resource to the people outside the city of Portland. They're in the process of building a new station to serve the New Deal Potts area. As they posted on their Facebook today, they've currently spent over $2,500 just to Sumner County planning and application fees alone. I'm asking that on top of the appropriations that you guys have tonight, that we add that $2,500 back in there, or we have that refunded back to them, and we look at waiving any additional fees so that they can get this building built, reduce those response times, and serve the people in New Deal Potts better. The other thing I want to talk about is the budget. There's an item missing from the budget, I think. Several of you in here are aware of the email chain that got sent out back in May with reference to the wheel tax being collected on disabled veterans. On May 23rd, I came into the clerk's office to get my tags changed out to the disabled veteran plates. First lady I spoke with said the wheel tax exemption is only good for one vehicle. I spoke with them, advised them I didn't think that was correct. Spoke with another gentleman in there. He said the same thing. I ended up going up and speaking to one of the staff attorneys, told them what the TCA stated. We spoke back and forth on that a little bit. The next morning, I received an email from several of you, one from the county clerk where they were refunding that wheel tax and advising that I was correct. They had been doing that wrong for the last 10 years. So that comes to the question of how many people has this happened to? How many disabled veterans has paid this money over the last 10 years since the law changed in 2014? The June County Commission meeting, the VSO reported 11,594 veterans living in Sumner County. So if only 10% of those paid that wheel tax for the last 10 years that they weren't supposed to, that's over $600,000 in taxes that's been collected from disabled veterans in Sumner County that we weren't statutorily authorized to collect. I've asked for an apology, something to be put out to say, hey, at least admit that we were doing people wrong. And here it is August, and I've still heard nothing. I think that's a shame to the veterans in this community, and do better. Thank you.
Thank you. And one more time, Pascal Joe Vance, is he here? No. All right. Under report of the chair, I want to take this opportunity, and it may be appropriate since I have announced that I will not serve as chairman beyond this year, which means I have one more meeting. I wouldn't miss this fun here tonight for anything. But let me say in context, I want you to look at the gentlemen and the ladies up here. I count it a privilege. I have a little bit of history. I have 32 years here, and I've seen many people come and many people go. But this is a wonderful group of people who are trying to do a good job for the county. And I refuse to lose a friendship ever with any voting, whether they agree with me or disagree with me on the county commission. They think through things. They're very smart, very sharp. You're not pulling much over on them. They are pretty shrewd people, and I appreciate the hard work of each and every one of them, and I want them to know it. And I want you to know that no matter how anybody votes tonight, they are a conscientious group of people. I will say we're going to take a little break here because we've had so much fun. An hour has gone by, and we'll take a little break and come back and get into the thrust of this meeting. But many of us understand the problem we have. It's a matter of just how will we solve it and when will we solve it. And I'm the culprit, really, for all of this because we had a standing rule pretty much in this county until I became director of schools that we would not build any athletic facilities. None. And we built Station Camp. And guess who built the football stadium? Okay? So I opened the door, and I will say that regardless of what my opinion is or how I think about things, these people are voting with their minds and hearts on this issue and will think it through very thoroughly, I guarantee you. Let's take about 10 minutes. I would just like to say before we proceed that I appreciate the audience tonight. You've been very kind and respectful, and we do appreciate it so that we can carry on with our business. I would like to remind the audience, though, please remain quiet while we conduct business. You've had an opportunity to speak. We have some serious business to take care of, so if you will, we would like no interruptions by laughter or comments or whatever. And to commissioners, commissioners, your task is very important tonight, and we hope that we don't take this opportunity to grandstand. Certainly would be a great audience here to grandstand before, but please remember this is a serious business that we're involved with here. And to everyone, I remind you that no commissioner is to be mentioned by name. Okay, we're only doing issues here, so you don't mention anyone. It's not necessary to mention an individual commissioner by name. All right, at this time, we very first thing we'll do is our budget hearing, budget hearings and public hearings, which is mandated by statute, and I'll turn this over to our budget chairman, Commissioner Schoaf.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we have, I believe, three groups who have requested one more at-bat here. Those are the library board, circuit clerk court, and planning. So we'll go in line there. If we have a representative from library who would like to come and speak as part of the budget hearing. Is there any representative from libraries?
Anyone from the library?
Okay. Circuit clerk court.
Good evening. I am asking for an additional budget amendment for a total amount of $35,446 onto my budget. When we submitted our budgets, a lot of the department heads, we asked for a market bump in addition to COLA raises for all of our employees. As many of you know what the economy is like and the inflation, we felt like we needed that in order to be able to hire and retain good employees. I'm very appreciative of the work that the Budget Committee did with these requests this year, and they received that with open mind, knew that this needed to be done, and they have done that. However, somewhere in the process, mine got cut by the personnel line by $21,446, which is not insignificant, but it is very significant to my employees. The county clerk's office, all of their deputy clerks were approved in full for their raises, plus the COLA raise. The trustee's office was approved in full. The Register of Deeds office were approved in full, but for some reason, we went through without a proper wage study, and my employees were arbitrarily knocked down some. So that means the result of that is a deputy clerk that works in the county clerk's office making the exact same amount as a deputy clerk in my office will now get a larger raise than my deputy clerk will. And I don't think that's fair on behalf of my employees. And so I'm here to ask that the additional $21,446 be put back into my budget so that I can fully give the same amount of raises, the same percentage raises that the other constitutional officers that are in my office that asked for, that they're able to give their employees. I think that's what's fair to my department and fair to my employees. The other additional amount I'm asking for is this year the IT department instituted a new phone system in the courthouse and all through the county. We didn't have a say in that. That's what they did. There's an increased cost in that. I didn't submit that additional amount in my first initial budget because I didn't know what those numbers were, but I did submit it in my second hearing on the budget, but I guess it got denied. I don't know why it didn't get put in, but that amount has increased where I need a total of $7,000 to cover for my phone line, so that's an additional $4,000. The last item that brings it up is an additional $10,000 into my data services account. Now, that comes directly from my data funds. That doesn't need to come from county funding. I already have a data fund account. I just need it to put in there so I don't have to come back to you later in order to get that money moved. But that money is already there, can only be used for data funds. So really just kind of an accounting thing if possible. I also asked for that in my second budget hearing, but didn't get it, but I'm really not sure why. So that's all. Thank you for your consideration. I'd appreciate a positive vote on that tonight.
Thank you.
Next up is planning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the County Commission. The purpose of my request is brought to my attention some time ago that our grant administrator position, Ms. Kim Norfleet, was proposed to be moved from the Planning and Engineering Department over to the Finance Department. As I told the Budget Committee, this is in no way a dig on the Finance Department or their professionalism or anything like that. I'm not questioning the Budget Committee's wisdom on any of this. But I do think there's not a very good understanding of the way that position works, the things that she does. She assists my department with a lot of long-term planning functions, ADA transition plan, fulfillment with transportation planning functions that we have to do, which are really rigorous federal requirements. She assists us with all that, the environmental regulations that go along with that. Over the last couple of years, she's really become an integral part of our team, and I would appreciate the County Commission keeping her where she is.
Next up, sorry, I forgot to call this one earlier, assessor property. Is the assessor property here?
Anyone here from the assessor of property?
Mr. Chairman, unfortunately, the assessor property is out of town. He asked that I speak on his behalf, having spent 18 years in the assessor's office.
Sure.
If that's okay with you,
Sure.
Mr. Chairman. And what we're seeking and what the assessor's office is seeking is some pay parity with the clerks that they have that do various functions within that office. What's unique about these clerks versus the other clerks in other offices? They're required to know all of the functions within that office. When they get a phone call, it may be a GIS function, it may be an appraisal function, it may be a deed function. So they are constantly being trained in all of those areas. So when we start comparing them to wages, we have to start comparing them to GIS tax. We have to compare them to our appraisers. And so what we're seeking is that we bring them up to that market adjustment that was given all the other clerks. They were not given this market adjustment for the clerks, as well as there were field men that were not receiving that function as well. Really, with this position in this office, retention is paramount in making sure that you have fair and accurate assessments. If we can't have a good retention rate with that office, and as assessor property over 18 years, we had the best retention rate in the county. And we did that because we trained and we took care of the people. And I ask that y'all allocate $35,000 to these two line items for these clerks and also for the field men to bring them up to the standard with the rest of the clerks across Sumner County. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that are the ones who had asked to be recognized.
Is there anyone that we happen to overlook that would like to speak on behalf of their department on an issue? Okay. Oh, yes, Mr. Guthrie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Emergency Communications Center is respectfully asking for an additional $2,636 to be added to the position of QA Supervisor. The reason for this is when this position was approved, the COLA was not approved of 5%, amounting to that $2,636. Without that additional funding, then that barely puts a supervisor above the position or the pay of a telecommunicator, and it puts it below the pay of a communications training officer. Therefore, this position would also oversee some aspects of both the CTO and the telecommunicators. We do ask for that to be approved to add to the COLA $2,636 for the QA supervisor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, one more. I apologize here. I believe we also, the Election Commission had asked to speak. Is there anybody from there?
The Election Commission, Sumner County Election Commission. Do you by any chance know what the issue was?
I don't, Mr. Chairman. I would assume it's similar to the others, some requests for changes based on changes that were made during the process.
All right. We'll consider it closed then.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. And I'm going to address this later. I think there's a simple way to address a lot of these that we can handle. I'm going to address that in item number 2408-02 in a second. Okay, moving on. So the next one I think is pretty simple, 2408-01. Fixing the tax levy in Sumner County, Tennessee for for this fiscal year beginning in July 1st, 2024. This is to accept the state-provided revenue neutral rate.
Motion's made. Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Opposed, like sign.
One second, Mr. Chairman. So I thought I was going to be able to do this on item number 2. So I'd like to move to reconsider, and this is what I'd like to do. We're going to keep it the revenue neutral rate, but what I would like to do to address some of these changes that have been asked for is to set aside 1/2 of 1 penny out of the current, we would move it out of the current $20 million set aside for capital for the highways. So 1/2 of 1 penny that's currently allocated to that, we would put it back toward the general fund. We wouldn't make any changes necessarily to the budget today, but we would set that aside so that we can review potential amendments. And I want to explain my rationale here. We're under a gun. We need to get this thing done by the end of the month. I do recognize that there are some amendments that have been requested, and we had a couple here that would like to get, I think would like to get a second look, and I don't know that we will be able to do that well in this forum. So given that, I think the prudent thing to do is take $500,000 from the $20 million that is currently going toward highway, set that aside toward general, and we can handle this in an amendment moving forward. I would like to make that motion to reconsider.
There's a motion and a second. I see no one in the queue. All in favor say aye. Opposed, like sign.
Abstain.
Okay, one abstention.
Yeah, it's just to be clear, it's from capital into general. So we're moving from the capital fund into general.
Yes.
Okay, so that was a motion to reconsider. I'd like to now go ahead and make that exact same motion in order to execute. 1/2 of 1 penny from capital toward the general fund.
Motion and a second. Seeing no one in the queue, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
Abstain.
One abstention.
Mr. Chairman, point of clarification, just for the record, I'm not sure that I was able to hear since we made the motion so quickly. Could the budget chairman please state for the record what that certified revenue neutral rate will be?
1.42.
Certified tax rate, as
Yeah.
I hear it, is $1.42.
1.421, if we want to be very close.
Which is a neutral tax rate.
Okay, so moving on to 2408-02. This is to make appropriations and approve corresponding budgets for various funds. This is for because it was voted to sever earlier. This is just for the county. So I would like to, I'm going to go ahead and make an amendment to this, to the budget as is. And what I'm going to do is request $5.4 million to be appropriated specifically from our capital, remain in our capital, so we can review it. But that would be appropriated with the intent for facility funding for Sumner County Schools.
All right, a motion, and I'm not sure our clerk got the second. We had several. Commissioner Becker, motion and a second. Seeing no one in the queue, Commissioner Mansfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess it's hard for me to talk about this appropriation without, since it's been coupled with the teacher raises, so I do kind of have to address both at the same time. I'll start out as Vice Chairman of the Budget Committee. I voted twice to increase school funding by $7.5 million for salary increases during our budget hearings. As a son of a Sumner County school bus driver for 33 years, I understand the importance of classified teacher pay raises. Growing up lower middle class, watching my parents struggle to pay the bills, I understand the necessity of these. So I hope I'm able to vote on these school budgets tonight because I do support the $7.5 million. I hope this will be my third time to vote on that. But I have a problem with the $5.4 million one-time capital ask. In October 2023, it was brought before us funding for bleachers or athletic facility upgrades at 5 different schools. That we went beyond the scope of bleachers, and I did vote to support the $15.8 million that was appropriated at that time for that project. And however, I cannot support an additional $5.4 million because I feel that it is a request forged in falsehoods and false narratives that have changed continually. And that is to cover for basically what citizens are telling me and what I perceive as, in my opinion, mismanagement of funds that were originally given. And because the scope of the work changed outside of the public eye, the public purview, it increased by $8.2 million, or 67%, for what we voted on last October and what we were told it was for last October. And then it gets changed. And also, the amount of work gets reduced to 3 schools instead of 5 schools. Increased by $8.2 million, but the work actually decreased. And this, all in my opinion, is without adequate public notice. The school board got notification 2-3 hours before their meeting in June. And I don't think 2-3 hours without being a published agenda for $5 million is adequate public notice under state law or even law that's been challenged in court. I know if the County Commission would have done that, everybody would have been screaming bloody murder and we'd have a lawsuit. And that's just a fact. I do want to call out several important factors about the Sumner County School Board budgets, if you'll allow me. I may get called out of order, but that's fine. The county's not reducing the school's budgets or asking them to cut it. We are simply sticking to what the Budget Committee originally offered and agreed to in May, $7.5 million for salary increases for teachers and classified employees. So we were able to do this because, in my opinion, we cut our own budgets last year by $14.2 million because the previous commission left us on a trajectory towards a tax increase. And we had to make some hard cuts last year. And we did it. And the schools did accept the recommendation from my motion that was voted on July 15, 2024, to accept the $7.5 million for teacher raises and correct their mistake of asking initially for a $7+ million that they reduced to $5-point-something million. And then they eventually, none of this was ever agreed upon by the Budget Committee or talked about. And so they did remove that. And it was interesting that my school board member, who represents me, is Stephen King. He made a motion in June to restrict $5.4 million in capital, or excuse me, not capital, but in reserves from the school board budget in case they needed that money to plug in the gap from the bleacher or athletic facility overages. They historically only spend 92% of their budget, which means they would have money left over every year. Historically, the schools have reserves that increase and have grown exponentially over the past 10 years. So the funding is there. School board members said it was there. King said it was there. He actually was laughed at, told it wasn't possible. But then yet again in July, the school board comes back and basically does what he suggested, was restricted $5.4 million in their budget for the comptroller. So I talked to a school administrator that wanted some perspective if we're separating out the $5.4 million capital ask, because everybody's saying it's for teacher raises, or if you don't support this, you hate teachers, or teachers aren't gonna get their raises, which is not true. The state has provided almost $40 million between last year and this year for teacher raises. $31.4 million was last year. $7.6 million is this year for that allocation. And while enrollment has remained flat, the school board continues to hire newly created administrative positions when the basic need is in the classroom instruction or classroom teacher raises as required by state law by fiscal year 26-27. Governor and the state legislature passed that law. They're requiring us to do it, and we've got 2 more years to get to that $50,000 threshold. I understand everybody wants to make that go faster. The Budget Committee agreed. We said, hey, $7.5 million. We know classified employees aren't covered in that mandated increase by the state. So what can we do to help that along as well and give that in? 22-23, $14 million was allocated from the state and $8.7 million by the county towards the schools that is newly recurring funding. 23-24, the state gave again $31.4 million last year for teacher raises. This year, the state's given $7.6 million. Budget Committee recommended $7.5 million. That's $15.3 million more in newly recurring funding towards teacher raises. And people talked about social media and comments, and I agree with a lot of those things. I think it's egregious to leverage $5.4 million in a one-time capital fund spend against teacher raises to say that you hate teachers if you're against this 5.4. I can't support this 5.4, and I hope it doesn't make it past the floor of this, because it might affect how I have to vote on the school budget, because I don't get to pick apart the school budget. I have to vote it up or I have to vote it down. If there's something I don't agree with and that I feel passionate about or convicted about or my constituents have instructed me on, and not supporting the $5.4 million. I hope it's not coupled together, and that's just me. So I cannot support this, Mr. Chairman. It's been mentioned we have $30 million in our capital, $20 million we set aside for highway to improve our road infrastructure, which I supported that in the Budget Committee. I know there was some consternation there on how that happens, to make sure we don't increase MOE. Our finance director had some good suggestions on how we could do that. We still have time to make those adjustments, which I think are good steps if you watch the last Budget Committee. And we also have around $10 million in capital that is restricted right now. Now, one of the budgets the county mayor submitted for capital was $3.8 million to repair this building, for structural repairs to the building in order to repair the roof, $3.8 million. So if you set aside the $20 million and you look at that $10 million, we're being asked to reduce that by $5.4 million. And if we have to spend $3.8 million, which is pretty easy to do in this county on maintaining buildings, we're left with less than $1 million in capital for the entire year for our county to take care of our own household. I don't believe that's the right thing to do, especially when the schools do have that $5.4 million in their reserves that they can restrict. They've already done it. There's nothing holding them back from putting a spade in the ground. Those tracks could have already been completed or started at least. Nothing happened. The money's there. And so I disagree with this, and I will be voting no on allocating any dollars from our capital. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioners, if something's already been said, let's not do a lot of repeating, but Commissioner Becker.
Okay, appreciate that. Just make sure my understanding is right, and to touch on a couple points. The request from the school board is, they've got $22 million in their capital projects, and they're requesting the additional 5.4. So that's $27.4 million in total. And so what that $27.4 million addresses It's the three football stadiums projects that we all know about. It also includes the Gallatin track and football stadium improvements there. It also includes the Station Camp High School track and football field irrigation and drainage. It also includes the Merrill Hyde Magnet School tennis courts for their on campus there. It also includes some future planning facilities at Gallatin, Portland, White House, Westmoreland. It also includes exterior work at North Sumner Elementary School. It also includes over 50 AEDs for schools. It also includes school buses. It also includes paving, roofing, HVAC, lighting, and other projects. And it also includes some continued safety enhancements in schools across the country and investment in fine arts. And so I just want to make sure we're all on the same page here. The total of the $27.4 million request, the 22 that's already there plus the 5.4 that we're discussing, it's a whole lot more than just 3 football stadiums, okay? And so I just want to make sure we're all on the same page, and that not us, but like everyone in the audience and so forth. You know, to speak, going back to the 15.8 that we talked about last October, you know, I have a lot of questions about the timeline of what happened after we passed it here versus where we are today. Like when we passed it in October versus where we are today. And I know through, you know, I've talked to several people just to understand the timeline a little bit better. But I know at least back in October, there was an anticipation of a bidding process through the state. When they got through to that point, either state law had changed or whatever had changed on the bidding process, so it started a little bit of delay. At that point in time, Director Langford instituted a backup plan of getting some temporary bleachers, and from my understanding, it also gave a little bit of time to, hey, instead of rushing things through, let's take a little bit of a pause. Let's make sure that we're capturing everything that each high school community needs. And so I think that's a good thing. I think personally what I think is not a good thing was the probably the communication around all that, or the lack thereof communication around all that. You know, I think it caught a lot of people, including myself, off guard that when these bids came in at the just for the stadiums were around the 20 million mark, and that the scope had changed. When did it change? There was a lot of confusion. And so I do strongly feel that the communication through it all was very poor. However, I don't think the exercises and the process that actually took place was a bad idea. I think it was actually a good idea. And so I'm not going to, you know, make an emotional vote on a very poor communicated plan. I'm going to make my vote to support our students in our high school communities, and I will definitely be voting for the 5.4. Thank you.
Commissioner Ring.
Thank you, sir. I taught school for 35 years before I retired, 2 years ago. And I will try to stay on point here on this particular issue, but I will say that, like many teachers, I had lots of side jobs. I used to tell my economic students that for most of my adult life, I've had 3 or 4 jobs, because most teachers have them. And we'll talk about that later. But one of my side gigs was working the reserve section at Gallatin High School football games. And I will tell you, the football game, and I've attended football games at other high schools in the county as well. As was mentioned earlier, it is community. It really is community. We had a football game that was postponed because of a tornado warning. At 10 o'clock, the tornado warning was lifted. The stands filled up again. That doesn't happen in a lot of other places around this country. It happens here in Sumner County. I will tell you that at Gallatin High School, for example, and I know situations at other schools as well, but that's the one I'm most familiar with, we have a track that literally has not been usable for years. Every time it's been repaved, within 6 months or a year, it's bad again, because the track was not built right in the first place. Probably because it had to be built by the community, and they were cutting costs to save money, and it was not built properly. It's not possible to have a track meet at Gallatin High School. It's really not possible for track athletes at Gallatin High School to even practice without putting their safety at risk. It is not safe, okay? If you have a track athlete at Gallatin High School, your child is not safe when they are practicing on that field. Same thing at other schools as well. Hendersonville High School, I know, was redone. It's a beautiful track. Station Camp High School track may look good, but it also is not the base of it is bad, it has to be redone. And so these are things that are included in this 5.8. Last year, before we discovered that so many bleachers were having problems, the Gallatin High School Quarterback Club replaced the visitor side bleachers. And they fixed up the home side bleachers. Not all the schools have the luxury of the support in the community that Gallatin High School Quarterback Club has. The school system previously, according to, based on what the director said, and I know about it too, literally did not build any facilities for any schools up until Station Camp was built. The communities had to do that. So because communities did it, a lot of work was volunteer, a lot of work was donated, and a lot of them probably did not live up to the standards that we would have today, because many of them have been there for a long time. I believe this money is necessary to get the standards up for the stadiums. If this fails, it wouldn't bother me if all the temporary bleachers that were put up were sent back to who we rent them from and tell people to bring their own chairs. That might give people an idea of what it's like if we don't have bleachers. Just bring your own chairs, your folding chairs, whatever. Sleep on the ground, put a blanket on the ground to watch the football games. That would last about one game, I think, before people had an uprising. But I believe this is important and it's necessary, and I will be voting for it. Thank you.
Commissioner Pomeroy.
I'm a grand finale guy, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to call the question.
Thank you. Okay, question's been called. All those in favor, do you have that ready on the board? All right. You'll vote yes to call the question, no otherwise.
Each commissioner record your vote.
There were 13 votes to call the question, so we will move to the issue of the amendment, which will be on the board.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. Take 16? Yes.
All right. Okay. Mr. Sittler does say that it takes 16, and that's correct. So we will continue talking. I would remind you to please not try to repeat yourself, what's already been said. Commissioner Klein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will try not to repeat what's been said, and I'll try to make it as quickly as possible. This is an important issue to me because coming out of a land development and construction history, I studied this quite a bit at the time back in October. I did read the structural report cover to cover, and it was very interesting to me that there was no talk ever in that structural report about condemnation or demolition of those, what I consider to be very attractive and very stout bleachers. I realize we had one collapse at Beach, and I got together at the time with a structural engineer and a concrete specialist, and we determined that we probably could have repaired all of those bleachers that still had a 50-year lifespan for about $3 million. I did make that amendment, as you may remember, and we lost by one vote. Now, the amendment I made had no teeth in it. It was merely to ask the director of schools to take a look and see what it would cost to repair those bleachers. But that is all past in history at this point, because the following week, the bleachers of all 3 high schools were demolished. Now, I did vote no on it because of that very reason. And it's not that I don't want bleachers. I grew up with bleachers in high school, and they're very important. But the way it was done was a problem to me. But when the 15.7 was approved, we had a scope, and we had a budget, and we live with it. Well, we also had a commitment from the school superintendent that he would take responsibility for all of this. Well, a couple months later, he was coming back to us for $2 million for temporary bleachers, because although he promised he would have them done in July, he was not going to. And so then he got together with stakeholders in the community to see what needed to really happen at those facilities. And there must be some confusion still, because I was told that the tracks at Gallatin and Station Camp High School will not be fixed because the scope at the other high schools would be increased. And it wasn't so much that the increase of prices, 60% on just bleachers was what I was told, which is fairly ridiculous in that short a period of time to see those kinds of prices increase. But that the tracks would not be done. And so when we were addressed by the county school superintendent at our last meeting, at the joint meeting of budget and school, I asked specifically for a list of the old scope and the dollar amounts attached to it, and the new scope with the dollar amounts attached to it, so that I could compare and see why the 5.4 increase was necessary. I'm still waiting for that chart to show me those things. The other thing that's important to note here is that we have maintenance of effort that a lot of people don't understand right now. That's $126 million, which is our share to the school district. About twice that comes from the state, and then another 10% from the federal government. So the schools have a budget of somewhere over $400 million, as I recall, which is about twice of what the county budget is. So that's one issue. The other issue is that with the maintenance of effort that has been continuing over the last 10 to 12 years, the school has had such a surplus at the end of the year that they've accumulated hundreds of millions in a surplus account that is taxpayer dollars and is drawing interest as well. I don't see why we need to add this $5.4 million to MOE, especially when we don't even know truly what it's for. This is another one of those situations, is that you have to vote it in before you know what it says. It would be now.
Wait just a moment. He's merely stating a fact, and we can get clearance on that later.
Okay. So anyway, I have a problem with the fact that our school system right now has $96 million over what the reserve account should be, and it's just sitting there drawing interest, and we're expected to increase our MOE on top of that. So I am the commissioner of District 6. I've had many phone calls. Every phone call I've had to date is against the 5.4 increase. And I think it's primarily because the track that has been promised for years to Gallatin High School, which is the only high school that is served by my commission district, will be getting that part of the scope removed. So based on what my constituency is telling me, I will have to vote no.
We have quite a few people in the queue, so if you are in the queue for the second time, I will, according to our rules, let everyone else speak once. Best I can remember, let everyone else speak once. Would you speak, Mr. Lawing, to the MOE issue?
I'm sorry, is it still blinking? Is it good now? My understanding is that it would not be included if we have an agreement with the school board. So you probably want to make this appropriation contingent upon a final agreement with the director of schools and the school board, which they did send a budget earlier.
But if we did that, would that have to be a 2/3 discharge from the committee? What, hold just a second. What is your opinion, Mr. Attorney?
If the creation of the new, do you want me to answer?
Mm-hmm.
If the creation of the document is to create the same documents that's in committee, I don't know why we don't pull it up from committee, but
Well, it's
I
simple.
can't say that a separate agreement can't be drafted.
Well, I'm going to call a spade here. It's super simple. There's probably a majority vote for this, and we're playing games because we want to make it to have 16 votes to pull it up so we can shut it down. So let's just rock and roll, and I'm going to say that I want to make this contingent on an agreement, and if we want to vote it down, that's cool. Making a contingent on an agreement, Dr. Langford, he's here right now. We can send it back to the school board that they will not hold this toward MOE. That's.
Is that a legitimate motion?
I'm just changing my amendment to have that. Is the second good with it?
To be voted on at one time?
Yes.
Okay, well, all right, we need to hear from everybody then before we vote on that. Is the second okay with that addition? Yes. All right. Commissioner Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The $15.8 million, I think it needs to be restated because it's been a little bit convoluted, was a transfer. It was not an appropriation from this body. It was a transfer from savings to checking. That's an easy way for people to understand it. So it's a little disingenuous to say otherwise. Secondly, $5.4 million. It's an approximate cost for these bleacher rentals are somewhere between $2 to $2.5 million per year. If the bleachers don't get built because we hold up the $5.4 million, just double that number. It's pretty simple math. Everybody in here can understand that. Now, I asked for an updated copy, and I probably won't get one until the 26th. Most of you don't see these packets that are laid on our desk. The 24 of us get to see them. As of June 30th, in the Sumner County I'm just going to call it the checking account. 366,770,000, I'll round it up, $7,000. It's an easy number to understand. Some of that money is bond money, some of that is debt service. You all understand that. Don't sit here and argue that we're Mayberry. This is an affluent county. This is an easy ask. It's real simple. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Things with the 5.4 is one-time capital funds, and I just want to start off and thank our budget chair, Matt Cho, for the hard work he put into it, and the school board, along with the director of schools, of actually not having a punching match back and forth and actually working on something to bring an agreement here. This is again, one-time capital funds where the county finance director will then approve the release of these funds. This does not increase the MOE, and I'm sure we're going to get to that. Thus the reason it's in writing per the agreement allocating it. This 5.4, again, does not call for new money, does not increase taxes or put us on a trajectory for one. Per our budget chair, I've worked with him for 2 years. I mean, he's not going to just throw out a number just for the sake of throwing out numbers and hope it lands on the right side. My concern for the taxpayers is if these bids are not signed off on and executed, guess what? These prices are going to continue to go up. Some of you in here have sat with me on the budget committee in year one, some in year two. You know that they're not knocking down the doors to give out bids all the time. Sometimes you can't even get bids. If I'm not mistaken, the school board only received 2 bids. I think they had somewhere around 9 companies. Important to note, I, along with other commissioners, met with the staff from Beach High School last year. None of them are asking for anything above what was there. A few modifications like putting restrooms in areas where your kids can go safely instead of under the bleachers, and making it ADA compliant is not, to me, unreasonable. To my, I'll echo what my commissioner to my right said about Gallatin track. You can't run on that. You can hardly even walk on that. I went there, took a look at it. Before there, I went to Station Camp High School. I looked at the track there. Had my wife with me. We walked around, looked at it. Just happened to run into the coach, Bain, and he took us through a tour of really what needs to be done. These guys are not asking for impossible things. They're asking for reasonable things. So, I mean, I'm going to vote to approve this. I think Mr. Schoaf's amendment to send it back to the director of schools to sign off on it is a great idea. A matter of fact, I think, if I'm not mistaken, my school board member posted that they're going to have a special calls meeting tomorrow night. So I'm sure if I'm not speaking out of line, they can sign off on that tomorrow night, and we can put this to bed and get this stuff done finally. Thank you.
Commissioner Janung.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 2 questions, and I'd like to ask our Director of Schools, if I might. Is that okay?
We would need to take a vote to have him speak.
Well, my question is, I mean, either way.
All right, motion and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. I'm ruling that the ayes have it. Scott, come ahead.
No? Yeah?
Unless somebody calls for a division, it was overwhelming.
It's okay. Thank you. My question is, I'm trying to understand all of this and trying to make a sound decision. But I have a trust issue, sir. And so the $5.4 million, is there a reason why that money cannot come out of your own reserve account? Is there a reason for that? Do you have a reason?
Yes, because we have to operate on the funds that we currently have. If you look at our current budget, we have about $4.5 million in reserves. That's for costs about $1.8 million a day to run Sumner County schools.
Right.
So you got to have some reserves. Just like last year, we were able to pull $15.8 million out to try to address our needs. That's a really low reserve. Now we will have more in reserves, but We won't know that until our budget's closed and we get all our finals back and everything. We have, one of the reasons why we're here tonight, Mr. Lawing deserves a lot of praise because what we've always done as a body, especially on the county side, is be really conservative on our revenue projections and really conservative on our expenditures, and that money rolls into reserve, and then we budget it the next year. A lot of places, if you look at other states and other places around the country that are broke, it's because they spend money that they don't have. So the problem would be is if we budgeted 5.4 million that we don't currently have, we would be hoping that that comes in. It's fine if it comes in, but if it doesn't, then we're over here trying to figure out what we can cut and different things like that. The best course, what we've done in the past is to project our revenue low and then, get as tight as we can on our expenditures, but then catch all that money in reserve and budget it the following year. That's what keeps us away from, that's the number one thing that's kept us away from tax increases. It's why we're setting the tax rate tonight at $1.42.
Okay, my other question is, October, I was very adamant that I actually ran on the track at Gallatin when I was training for the military, and I about broke my leg. And it's very discerning to me that the track is in such bad repair. And I had last year asked that that be done. I wanted to make sure that that would be done. And I actually talked to the principal and I said, if there's anything I can do for this high school, I'd like to see that done. I know the other stadium is an older stadium and it has issues too. But I have a problem with Gallatin being put on the back burner a lot because it seems like, they're the county, they actually always, to me, were the county seat. And so my opinion my trust issue is that Gallatin's going to be left out again. And so my question to you is, can you promise me that in this money that you will make sure this before next year or by the end of the year that this track is done and these kids can run without, and myself, I'm not going to run until I don't know no more, but that the people in the community will be able to use the track safely and it will be finished because I really don't trust what's happened. I'm just an honest person. I'm telling you how I feel. I've been out and I've talked to the constituents in different places. I did my research. Many of them said they'd rather have the money inside the school. But again, I understand what the athletics people are asking. But my questions to you was why not take it out of your own little bucket? And are you going to guarantee 100% that this is going to happen?
100%. We'll bid it. There's rules on when you bid a track based on weather. So the moment that we can get that bid to start construction, we'll do that. It'll definitely be in this budget year, and we'll do it as fast as we can. I've promised, Ms. Hawkins has been bringing this up since about 2017, I think. And I agree that Gallatin has a lot of work that's long overdue. And we've started, we were able to air condition the little gym and do some other projects, some athletic field projects, like we recentered the field. It looks great. It's about a week or two out from being ready or a week out from play. And it's going to be great. And I understand the trust issues because Gallatin does deserve more. I'm going to do everything in my power to do that. But the track is, we've got to get, because we have a bid that the time is running out on the 3 football stadiums. We've got to get that done first, and the next priority are the tracks at Gallatin and Station Camp. I did a tour with Coach Bain last week, and he showed me there are a lot of issues on that track. It's got to be crowned properly so it drains. There's 2 big drainage issues, and there's a lot of leaking in the irrigation. And that's we don't want to just go in and drop a track until we fix that irrigation and drainage stuff, or we'll just be coming back in a couple of years doing the track again. So Station Camps has some investigation to be done to figure out all that needs to be done. But the goal is to get those 2 tracks done as quickly as possible.
So recapping what you said, you're saying that you're going to make sure that this is done in this cycle, correct? And that you are going to make sure that Gallatin, and I'm not just, I understand there's a lot of other schools. I've been to all of them. I've looked at them, trust me. And I've been very angry at the fact that a lot of the buildings in the schools have been left in a disarray. that to me was unconscionable. And so, again, I'm trusting, I'm sorry, I just have a trust. And so if I take your word for it, what am I going to do to you next year when you say it's not done? Am I going to come up and knock you in the head? I wouldn't do that to you. I wouldn't do that to you.
I think the Gallatin people right here
And
will hold me
I won't
accountable.
I won't hold the meeting up here, but I'm just saying that what is my recourse? You know, I've been, I heard tonight, I heard everybody, I hear everybody, I listen. My problem is trust, and I just wanted to make that known, so appreciate it, thank you.
Commissioner Wright.
Of asking a question.
He's still up, so go ahead.
Thank you. Number one, you have a tough job. You have to answer to your employees, but you have to answer to the citizens of this county. Number two, I appreciate issues that were addressed last year being hopefully resolved. Number three, I appreciate you coming to the north end of the county and supporting our schools. I think you enjoyed the Duncan booth a little too much.
I mean, you went down pretty easy.
I know, it was, yeah. But you didn't have to try to hold me under. That was just wrong. I would appreciate some of you folks that live on the south end of the county. We have schools on the north end. Come visit us. I come to y'all's schools, I support you, or I try to, but we need y'all's support on the north end also. There is not a child nowhere in this county, whether they're on the south end, the north end, anywhere within this county, that is any better than any other. They all deserve, number one, the same education. Number two, they deserve a safe learning environment. Thank you.
Commissioner Rogers. All right, question's been called. Put that on the board, Madam Chairman.
Each commissioner record your vote.
Okay.
Anyone not voting wishing to vote?
All right, listen, folks, make sure, number one, that you have more information to give than we've already heard. Don't repeat yourself. And I'm not sure that don't have enough knowledge right now to vote. I don't know what the problem is, but. Pardon? Okay. I'd like to try one early meeting. Yeah. Okay, well, let's, okay. All right, thank you. Okay, Commissioner Wynn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So a lot of information shared, a lot of good stuff shared. I think there's a lot of good things that can take place, especially with this budget request and the $5.4 million. I know the community I represent, we're not really getting anything on this round. There's going to be some study and stuff done, but I think we get it. There's a lot of needs throughout the county, a lot of facilities that need attention. And it's a process. These things didn't happen overnight. They didn't happen 4 years ago. They didn't start happening 8 years ago. It's been going on for years and years and years. We're all familiar with budgets at this point, and we do see where delays in general maintenance on things happen. We do it here in our body. We've done it. We kicked the county air conditioning down the road as long as we could until we finally decided that it's time to fix that. So, you know, it's just time. You know, one thing that I do want to point out, and I think that it's definitely important to mention, is there's the question as to, well, you know, hey, the schools have so much millions in reserves, and why aren't they using that? You know, well, I always like to, just as a sanity check, is like, hey, are we being fair? You know, are we being consistent? And just kind of look at how are we doing our budgeting as a body? You know, are we following the same guidelines that we expect others to follow? And when I look at ours, I'm like, my God, I don't think that we are. You know, I'm not saying we're doing a bad job, but it's, you know, when you look, and just pulling from the Tennessee Comptroller's office today, the latest file they have on, it's an infographic, but cash on hand, $77.3 million roughly. And according to the Tennessee Comptrollers, it's like this county could run using only cash for 302 days. I mean, why are we cutting our tax rate 39 cents? That's my question. Why would we, I mean, we're expecting others to, hey, use your reserves. We only need $15.3 million in our reserves, yet we got 77. It's really interesting. So I think it's good to have the reserves. I'm not advocating against that, and I think that we're doing a good job budgeting and how things are being budgeted. So I don't want to come across as that we're not. But I do think it is fair to be consistent and apply the same measure to yourself as you expect for others. And I don't think that we're doing that. So I do believe that we do have the additional funds for this request. It's in unallocated. You know, there's actually $42.7 million in dollars that are not earmarked for a specific project. 30 million of that specifically, I guess it's what, 19 and a half now since we took out some for to move over into capital, but 19 and a half for our highway, and then another 10, I think it's 10.2 in capital project funding. But it's just not identified projects. It's just kind of like, you know, well, just if we decide to do something. I mean, I think some people would call that a slush fund. You know, it's essentially just money there for, you know, whatever you want to do. So we do have the money. We do have the money. And I think that we do need to use it to something that will benefit the taxpayers here in the county. And, you know, I'm going to support it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for letting me speak, and I'm glad we did not rush to the vote, just because I think this is an important vote that everybody should have the reason to justify why they're voting a certain way if they want to, because there's a lot to be answered for with this vote. There's been a lot of talk about what our jobs are up here. There's even been talk about what would Jesus do. I know what Jesus wouldn't do. He wouldn't add a bunch of lies and hyperbole to an already complex situation, making statements like ballistic safety film and decades-old safety issues at one school are tied to this budget. That was said in a Facebook post. Not true. The ballistic film was actually paid for by the state of Tennessee last year. So it has nothing to do with this budget. The decades-old safety issue at one of the schools should have been handled decades ago. And it's not even in the current plan for the original scope of work, which was the 15.8 approved last fall. That should have been priority one. As much as I heard about that and as much crying that was done over that, and rightly so, it should have been handled. Statements like these are designed to fuel an emotional response. I find them, frankly, reckless and dishonest. I have no problem funding teacher raises and upgraded stadiums. I'll be clear on that. Beach and Henderson High School are due to have some very nice stadiums under the original plan, with 75% more seating capacity. That's huge. That was the original plan. We transferred $15.8 million last fall. What has been done? And I know reasons have been given why nothing's been done. Steel could not be purchased within the proper timeline. I want everybody to understand something. I made calls to bleacher companies. Steel and aluminum for the bleachers is in stock because they're modular components. You want them 20 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet long, they're modular. They provide their own components. The steel in question was for all the ancillary buildings and all the other projects that went along with it. Why were bleachers held up? We had an immediate need that we had emergency meetings for, and we're still sitting here with nothing. I got a real trust issue also, Commissioner Genong. We had a sermon Sunday about being a good steward with what has been given to you. I've seen nothing, no results from what has been transferred over to the school department when trust was asked for and guarantees were made. And then to hear lies and hyperbole added to fuel up a fire, money given, $10,000 given to gin up crowd response to come to something like this. Uncalled for, not necessary. If people care about teacher raises and bleachers, they would have come anyway. But I guess they need an extra push to get the numbers out for the media or whatever. I've been instructed by my constituents, several of them, to vote no on this. I've even had some of Commissioner Schmidt's constituents contact me and tell me to vote no on this. So I will definitely be a no, and until I see some shovels in the ground and work started with the money that's already been given, I don't see the need to keep giving more money, especially when the scope of the project keeps changing after a public vote was taken on the scope that was agreed upon. That's not right. There needs to be some accountability here. I'm gonna do my part, not because I'm trying to get reelected or try to keep my position, because I chose to run on fiscal responsibility. And I think that's my job, is to hold people accountable fiscally.
County Mayor.
Mr. Chairman, I thank you for all these comments, and to be quite frank with you, I was kind of feeling lonely, so I felt like I needed to add just a brief comment that I do support this project. We've talked about it quite often, and the money is there. We are blessed as a county to be as fiscally strong as we are and to have the tax rate that we just passed. And I think it would be irresponsible to continue to prolong this project when, at the end of the day, we're going to end up doing it. And it's just going to end up costing more and more as we prolong it. So I encourage this body to pass it. And if I could call for the question, I'd do the same. Thank you.
Commissioner, Commissioner Schmidt, have you spoken once? Okay, well, we'll have to be in order, though. Commissioner Sullivan? Okay. All right, question's been called. Madam Clerk, put that on the board.
Each commissioner record your vote.
Okay, let's see. I said that I would not lose a friend up here. How you? We're getting close, okay? All right, Commissioner Mansfield? No.
Well, that's really respectful. It's really civil. It's very Christian of you.
Listen, everybody, calm down. All right, go ahead.
I do want to address a couple of comments that were made. $5.4 million.
You're not supposed to. I'll get your name.
You called the question, I guess. That doesn't count, but I mean, I'm happy to yield.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. It was mentioned a $5.4 million or a list of things for that the school budget is going to be used for and safety needs. I want to remind everyone this $5.4 million is not for safety needs. It's not for anything else. It's strictly for athletic facilities, and that's what the MOU agreement that was proposed by the school board was about. It's not for anything but athletic facilities. Again, bleachers fell last August. October, we approved $15.8 million. December, the schools tried to use a method that was against state law. They failed in that method. There was delays. It's not the county commission's fault for those delays. And then in June, when this was brought up again, when the overages and the bids came out, they're saying, oh, well, we got to have this money for teacher raises. That was not true. July comes back and said, well, we can use this money for anything. And then it comes back, finally, to the real issue, overages on athletic facilities. It was mentioned about the Gallatin tracks. School board member Josh Graham spoke in 2021 to use money that was, the school board voted $3.5 million to give towards an old horse barn instead of fixing up tracks. And he said, use that money for the Gallatin tracks. And he was ignored, and they voted to give that money for an old horse barn. And we didn't even own that barn. So I don't want to hear, hey, this was important when it was ignored and you're wasting money and wasting funds on other things that weren't a priority at the time.
Video just bit dust. I got. What's that?
Well, no.
Sir, there's commission. I've been contacted by folks.
No.
The video feed is down.
No.
Can we check?
Go ahead, Commissioner Mansfield.
I just wanted to clarify the $5.4 million, again, is only for athletic facilities. It's not for any kind of safety needs at any school. And that I wish the Gallatin tracks would have gotten fixed with that $3.5 million back in 2021. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Commissioner Pomeroy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, I tried to not speak tonight. I voted twice. Call the question. I've lived here 46 years. I look out in the audience here tonight, and I see people I've known forever. And the one thing about me that Mr. Chairman would know from when he coached me in basketball when I was 7 years old, I'm really honest. I'm not a real good politician, and I've probably been in arguments with every single one of you at different times. And I own that. I stand what I am. I'm equal opportunity when it comes to that, as you would say. I just tell it how I see it. I think our tax rate's too low. 1.42 is not a neutral tax rate. If you knew how to do math, you'd be able to figure that out. It's a bad state law. You can go look at the state comptroller's office and realize that since 2019, the last time a assessment was done, we are setting a state produced by the state of Tennessee, combined the years, we're at 20% inflation since 2019, right? Bidenomics, right? Everybody knows that. We talk about that. So then we want to pass a tax rate that's supposedly revenue neutral back to 2019. So that is in the same sense saying, if we collect the same amount of money we did in 2019, 2019 dollars go just as far as 2024 dollars. Not true. So I will tell you right here, right now, we have the money. We can do that, not because of this commission that's sitting here that I'm on, because the commissions before us. We've been fiscally responsible for a long time, for a long, time. We have been fiscally responsible. We will be in trouble in a couple of years because we only do reassessments every 5 years, and eventually inflation will, even with the best of management and the best of squeezing your finances, it'll get tight. I sat in Commissioner Schoaf's chair for 3 years as the chairman of this budget committee. I do find it interesting also, you can always look at a budget of $400 million and say, why would you spend this and spend that? Right? Why would you spend this? If you really cared about this, you wouldn't spend that. It's all a bunch of junk, guys. Y'all know what it is. We got some people that like power. They've said it from their comments. How do I get you back if you don't do what I want? What do I get to do to you? And so my thing when we talk about this is from a guy who has lived here his entire life. We are better than what we do, but, you know, elections have consequences, and we've got people that like to fight. This is simple. Lowest tax rate in Middle Tennessee. Matter of fact, we could go up 12 cents and still be the lowest tax rate in Middle Tennessee. And still be. So if I voted to raise it 12 cents and you told me you're going to move, because I'd say, well, you ain't moving anywhere that touches Davidson County. Where are you going to go? It's just not true. And there can be all this spin, and you didn't do this, and you didn't do that. We have the money. I talked to the chairman of the budget committee back in March, and I told him he'd have to buy me lunch. I'm Nostradamus. I said, hey, here's what's going to happen. Here's how you fix this. Just go ahead and pay for it out of all this unallocated capital money that we're going to have. It's simple. Sometimes educated people have to get together, look at the numbers, look at the math. This is simple. We have the money. It does not have to be an MOE. And I could cherry pick probably a few people on any issue and said, they told me to vote against this. Okay. It doesn't matter. We're up here to do what's right and what the community wants. I think it's overwhelming that this community gets tired of going to other high schools, gets tired of traveling and being in facilities that are so much more than ours. The insult, of a mob or people being paid off, very funny. I always say this, when they, I'm on it, I get to finish, I was really quiet, Mr. Chairman. I'm narrowing it, I promise, I'm coming to a big end. Every month I have to come up here and people call people mob or propaganda or whatever. I'm finishing this point. If somebody doesn't agree with you, they're not the mob. We can all have different opinions. There's normally a group that sits right here I very hardly agree with, but I don't think they're the mob. I think they're just saying it like they think. So I just think we should vote on this. I think we all know what's going to happen when we do. And unfortunately, I think we're probably going to have to wait till the next election to fix it. I hope everybody's paying attention. This is really simple. We can get what we want with the lowest tax rate and take care of it all tonight. And I hope that's what we do. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Budget Committee, for bringing together a very thought out, good budget that I appreciate the hard work because I've sat in that chair. Thank you so much.
Commissioner Brown.
First thing I'd like understood is that the school budget with the certificated and classified salary increases has my approval, as well as I'm sure the majority of this body here. Whether the director is going to hold your salary increases hostage for this $5.4 million capital outlay is up to him and the Board of Education. Previous commissions did not give the raises to teachers that this commission has. This is not a vendetta against sports either. I was a teacher, track coach, cross-country coach, and I ran with my athletes, and I took them home if they needed rides. We're long past the 285 days that was first presented to us, promised in October of 2023 that we would have the stadiums completed. We had a group back then called One Sumner. They printed T-shirts, and even some of our commissioners wore them. We were lectured time and again by this group, give the Board of Education the $15.8 million, and they would hold them accountable. Now we have another group ginned up to intimidate this body also. We had a cost estimate by the preferred A&E group by the Board of Education, Katz, Binkley, Jones, and Morris, of $15.6 million for all 5 high schools and all facilities. A fund was even set up, proposed by Commissioner Mansfield, that if anybody wanted to donate to that fund, they could do so. There's a zero balance in that fund. When the bids were let 9 months later, it was only for 3 high schools and only for the stadiums at a cost of $20.4 million. Proponents of this increase said that Katz, Binkley, and et cetera are only an A&E firm and that they could only give estimates or guesses. They weren't actually doing the building. If that is the case, why are we using them as consultants? If that is the case, why accept their advice and counsel anymore? $5.4 million is a gross mistake. I would suggest the Board of Education get another A&E firm. They seem to be rather greedily tacking on another $437,000 to their fee because of the project going up $5 million. And they're just giving advice, poor advice at that. Now we're told to give the Board of Education the money because the bids will expire. We waited 9 months for these bids, and the first construction doesn't even start until after the 2024 football season is over. That's in November, December. There is no rush, especially with the downturn in the inflated market last week, and economists say that we're headed for a recession. Sumner County Board of Education member Stephen King had a plan prepared at the last Board of Education meeting to get the school system out of this fiasco. However, an unauthorized spokesman spoke at the Board of Education meeting and gave them false hope. The director and the majority of the board seized upon this false hope, and board member King's plan was effectively scrapped. Too much of this saga sounds like the little boy who cried wolf. It would put this county taxpayer in a trick when the Board of Education is holding millions of taxpayer dollars hostage in their reserve. And I cannot vote for this motion.
Commissioner Becker.
Appreciate it. Hearing just various comments, there's 2 items that sort of stood out to me. I'll use the word sticking points. One was to make sure that the Gallatin track was included, and Dr. Langford already addressed that, so that's good. The other one centers around the maintenance of effort, whether this touches it or not. And I think there's probably people that think it is included, think it's not included. So I would like to suspend the rules and ask Dr. Langford so we can get on the official minutes of this meeting to answer the question about the MOE on the 5.4.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Don't say.
I'll be brief. My understanding is any capital is non-maintenance of effort. In fact, we sent over an agreement voted on by the school board the night that Mr. Schoaf spoke to the school board We sent over an agreement, or excuse me, I think it was the next week. We sent over an agreement to the Budget Committee that said basically that we would accept this not maintenance of effort. I don't think that capital would be maintenance of effort anyway, because I believe, Mr. Show, correct me if I'm wrong, the money would actually be housed in the commission like we've done in the past for schools and different things like that. So the money would be here, so it would never enter into the school system. So there's no way it could be considered maintenance of effort.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Set up. Commissioner Schmidt, and please don't mention names.
No, I'm going to be real quick. I just want to remind, because I had a commissioner mention my name about my constituents. I've worked with Commissioner Schoaf, again, on 2 budgets, and he can correct me if I'm wrong. He's right behind me, as everyone knows. I always ask Commissioner Schoaf, will this put us on a trajectory for a tax increase? I asked that most recently with the libraries, which was voted down, unfortunately, but that it is what it is. I've emailed and spoke with my constituents about this, and I let them know, look, if this doesn't pass, here's the facts. If it don't pass, there's a possibility the prices are going to go up. There's also the possibility that the school board will vote to rent bleachers for, and I heard a previous commissioner mention that as well, which is several $1 million to do that. So, you know, while I threw my name out, I am working with my constituents, communicating with them. I get out there and speak with them, and they realize they're not stupid. They don't just come around when this happens. They're not stupid. They realize that what Commissioner Schoaf has proposed and working with the school board is best for their community, and they're appreciative of that. They do not like the stone throwing and the constant back and forth. I'll finish with this so I don't have to maybe not press this button again. Full disclosure, my wife does work for the Sumner County school system, and based on my constituents and other constituents' concerns, that I was going to abstain on June 20th because I felt it was a conflict of interest. They've respectfully come to me and asked me, will you reconsider and vote yes? There was no stone throwing. There was no bullying like there is at some of these voting locations. We can get into that, but we won't. But there was none of that. There was conversation and civil discourse. So I am going to vote yes on both budgets because it's the right thing to do. And again, I just want to disclose that so it's on the record. Thank you.
Commissioner Teachner.
Thank you, Chairman Hyde. I have a question. I don't know if we could, I wanted to ask it a while ago, but I've been in a while back. So I just, if we could suspend the rules one more time, I'm sorry to ask that of Dr. Langford, but I have a question about something.
Are you making a motion?
Sorry.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
I'm getting old here.
Dr. Langford, how much is in reserves right now for the schools?
What's in the budget right here is $4.5 million.
$4.5 million, that's all that's in reserves?
That's budgeted. We will know in 3 or 4 weeks whenever we get our books closed and everything. Some of that will depend on the additional revenue that comes in, and then whatever we don't spend, you know, like when you've got a budget as large as ours, if you have things like unfilled jobs and things like that, that adds up over the course of the year.
So I'm truly asking, I don't know, why do we hear the numbers 96 million, 130 million, 126 million, 162 million, 64 million? Why are those thrown around?
Well, I think
Where do they
that,
come from?
you know, if you go back and look at some of the school board meetings, you can see that Ms. Brown, our CFO, has done a lot of work to explain our reserve funds. Sometimes the larger numbers include things like we have everything from money that's in there for school nutrition reserve that we can only spend on school nutrition. We have things that are connected for different things. Like we did a presentation with the school board last year when we approved making the ask for the $15.8 million from our reserves into our operational and capital lines. That was based on, you know, ideally the comptroller likes it if you have 3 months of reserves. 3 months of reserves for Sumner County Schools is about $57 million. Ideally, you would like to keep about $57 million. You have to keep, I think it's 3%. Mr. Long, is that correct? 3% in reserve by state law. So you can be anywhere in between. I think that, you know, the core of the reason why there was so much money in there was, one, it's good to have its safe practice. Like the county, y'all actually have a policy that says that, or a procedure that says to keep 3 months of reserve at all times. It affects the county's bond rating and different things like that. So that's a good practice recommended by the comptroller. So we've tried historically to stay above that 3-month operational expense level, which is about $56, $57 million. It fluctuates a little bit as our budget goes up. But the other money, it was a host of things. One thing is, as I mentioned earlier, we have always projected revenue conservatively. For instance, one of the years, like I think it was the first year, Mr. Long can correct me if I'm wrong because I don't want to speak on his behalf. One of the first years of COVID, we projected 0 growth on everything because we had no idea what was going to happen. And then a couple things happened. We started getting to collect sales tax on Amazon purchases in the county, where before, or not just Amazon, but online. And so we caught a big influx of sales tax revenue off that. And then also people didn't stop spending money because of all the ESSER money and everything that was dumped into the economy. People continued spending money. So we actually came away, the county coffers benefited tremendously because we anticipated 0% growth, and we came in, Mr. Long could tell the number, but I think it was like 5.5%, 6% on sales tax. Property tax didn't drop, and so it's just the fiscal solidity of our county and the conservative revenue projections and spending. We said a lot of great things about Sheriff Weatherford on Friday. One of the things that nobody said is that the sheriff department became as great as it is because Sonny understood if you spend $1, you spend it wisely. And Sheriff Weatherford always brought money back. He didn't just spend it because it was the end of the year, and he could have because he was fiscally responsible. And I think that's the same across all of our departments, and that's where that comes from.
But, okay, so Dr. Langford, so you're telling me that we have 4.4 million in reserves,
What is budgeted here?
but we're supposed to have 57 million?
That would be the ideal. We went big.
So
We'll come in higher than 4.5, but I won't know until we close our books.
But I'm saying like the discrepancy, when you came in, it was 57 million, and now we're at 4.4 million-ish?
Yeah, that makes me nervous.
Like that's, because that's not even that's not even half a month. That's not even, yeah, like 3 days. So how did that happen? I just don't understand how it got from, we spent all that?
We moved 15.8 last year, right, out of reserve, right?
And that's already been spent too?
No, some of that's been spent. So that's the money that's in there. It's budgeted in the year. But when you're putting $29 million in compensation and then another 22 to 27 based on how this vote goes into capital, that money has to come from somewhere. Typically, projects this size would be done on a bond, not out of your reserves. You would keep that operational stability, but now is a terrible time to take on a bond because interest rates are high. We're not looking as a county to take on any more debt, and so that's not the right path. So the other option is, and I mean honestly, the reason that you keep reserves is when you have rainy days or you have emergencies, you spend that down knowing that you can rebuild those. Or the other option, the other two options are issue a bond or raise taxes. The thing that's good news for Sumner County is we're able to do it out of our reserves and address the needs for our citizens.
But I appreciate you being candid with this, but how do you raise up from 4.4 million, from 3 days of operating? Like, I'm just saying, if I were, well, my wife works for the school system. That scares me to death if we're only reliant on her income. And there's a lot of people who are only reliant, so.
We're veering
I'm
a
just
little
trying
bit. Our motion is whether to add this to the main motion.
I understand, Mr. Hyde, I'll keep it on point. But what I'm worried about is, so you're saying, like, there's literally that little money, and then at that point, you say we could build it up, but how do we build it up other than the bonds or taxes?
I think we're talking about two different things. If you're talking about salaries, their budget is in here. There we go. So I think we're talking about two different things. Salaries and all that is budgeted in here. So that money will be there for salaries. We're not talking about anybody losing salaries. What we're talking about with the lower reserve is, like, let's say that we had a stadium collapse, a natural disaster, there'd be a host of things that could happen that would require us to dip into our reserves. We wouldn't be able to dip into our reserves as deeply as we could last year when the bleachers collapsed. But in terms of employees being paid, every dollar that we're talking about for raises and things like that is in this budget.
I understand. I'm just trying to get my head around where the other money went, like where it's all. I just don't understand where the 57 million went down to where there's only 4 million left in savings.
Because we put 29 million in additional compensation for, for
So
instance.
it's just allocated, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, so it is in there. So how much of it is in there to be spent, including the allocations? Like, that's what I'm asking.
I'm not sure it's all right here. I'm not sure exactly, like, the total budget includes, do you understand, Mr. Long? Can you help me out?
He said page 8.
I think what you're comparing, Jamie, is you're comparing actuals and projections. On page 8 is the school's reserves. If you look, there's several millions of dollars budgeted. If you look, there's budgetary reserves. If you look if you're on page 8 and you go up to where you see the bold, dark lines, not the first set, but the second set up, and there's $401,325. If you go up 2 lines.
So there's 56 million in reserves.
That's the 2 amounts budgeted, and then down below it are amounts that are committed or restricted that aren't budgeted.
Restricted, yes, but okay.
So he's got his 3% in there, additional 4.5, and several million budgeted for operation, and 22-some odd million for one-time capital.
I understand.
So you're looking to actual to budget.
I understand allocations. I'm just asking you how much was in there. I didn't know the number. And when you said 4.4, I got scared to death. I thought we're going to have to sell the building and give you all of it.
The 3% that we're required by law was 4.4.
Okay.
Talking about the actual, Jamie, you've also got to remember he's got a budget that has full appropriations. All those amounts aren't spent. So by the end of the year, unspent amounts will roll back in.
Listen, we need to quit talking budget. This is having to do with whether to add this amendment to the main motion or not. Now, I'm not trying to be funny here, but there's not anybody in this room, that does not know how you're going to vote. Now, let's quit the foolishness and get on with business. The people deserve it. All right. Commissioner Scho.
Mr. Hyde, can I just finish, Mr. Hyde? I'll ask you this question. This is what I'm trying to find out is, are we going to put our reserve money lower than is, like, you understand what I mean? I want us to make sure we have enough money in here.
Honestly.
Okay, this is what I'm saying. I want to make sure that we have enough money of restricted reserves before we make this vote, because we heard a while ago that it could go down to $1 million. I'm just trying to find out those numbers, because if I'm fiscally watching over the people's money, I just want to make sure that we're not pulling all the money from a smaller account and making sure that there's not money. That's all I'm asking. And so I just want it to be explained, because there's been a lot of numbers thrown around. And I take it seriously. I know you know I do. And I want to make sure that there's not an improper use of savings accounts. I want to make sure we're not pulling from the wrong one. That's all it is.
Okay, and I apologize if I was short to
Thank you.
but we need to narrow this thing down and get on with it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Schoaf.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. I'm going to take 10 seconds. There's no slush fund at the county. I don't think that there's a slush fund at the schools. We both run at about between 90 and 92%. When you run, we have what's effectively a $300 million P&L, profit and loss, business. The schools have about a $400 million business. We run about 92% of our budgets. We're all yelling at each other right now, but we actually both doing about the same thing. So I just want to be super clear about it. I won't go into all the details, but that's about where we're both at. Second thing, if you vote for it, if you vote against it, nobody here is the devil. There is no immoral or evil thing on either side of this. It's just dollars. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Mansfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It was mentioned earlier about tax increases. I just want to remind people, and I've said this before in the previous commission, just because what you're doing today does not require a tax increase today doesn't mean it's not going to cause a tax increase next year. Our finance director sent out a letter to the entire county commission back in October that said if the school department takes on the construction, renovation, and maintenance of athletic facilities that they have not done in the past, it will require additional revenues, i.e. tax increases. He said, also confirmed that debt service fund for us does have a limited capacity for new debt for construction or renovations without additional tax revenues. So I think it's important to note, just because the narrative is saying we're not having to raise taxes this year, if the trajectory is to move on in the way the schools are projected, it will require additional tax revenues. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Brown? Okay, you can put that on the board, Madam Chairman.
Each commissioner record your vote.
All right. Now we will vote on the amendment. The question was called. Now we'll vote on the amendment. This is adding, Commissioner Shope, would you like to restate that? Everyone listen up.
The amendment is to add $5.4 million in our capital fund allocated for use for school facilities, contingent on the aforestated agreement that this will be not a part of maintenance of effort.
All right. That amendment is on the board.
Each commissioner record your vote.
Now, with 14 votes, that merely means that this amendment will be voted on with the main motion of the school budget. So at that point, we will come back and make, we're taking 10 minutes, we'll come back and debate on the school budget. school. I misspoke. There's no telling what I would have said at that point. But anyway, Commissioner Schoaf, go ahead.
So as amended, I move to approve 2408-02, the county commission budget as severed and amended.
All right, motion and a second, and I have three people in the queue. Commissioner Pomeroy.
Real quick, I just want to make sure I'm clear. So the request that came before us tonight, that's being picked up by the half a penny, and we're going to handle that, right?
Correct. That is correct.
Awesome.
That
Awesome.
will be, it's just bumped off a month because we're trying to get this over the hump.
Great, let's vote tonight.
Commissioner Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have one concern about, there's a line item for commissioner travel in our commission budget for $10,000. So one, I'd like to get a little bit more information on what exactly that is for.
That's my vacation in town.
That's what I was afraid of, yeah.
No. Commissioner Schoaf, do you want to?
The commissioner, I believe this was amended in, and I'm going to have to go back. I'm doing this from memory, and I'd ask Mr. Long to help me. But I believe that was amended in. There used to be a line item for travel, and this was for folks who are doing like their continuing education. That's what it's for. I actually think I voted against it. I'd have to go back and look at it, but I think this is what it's for. Mr. Long, can you confirm?
It was for the continuing education for additional training classes for things such as grant management.
That's what it's for.
Okay. I'm concerned because I know once upon a time where we didn't have the interwebs and, online classes weren't available, so travel would definitely be something that would need to be considered. But, now it's like as a commissioner, you're only required to do 7 hours of training, continuing education a year. Classes are available online. I know there are some commissioners who take way more than 7 hours. I think the highest one out there was 76 and a half hours of total training time. I'm not sure if all of that would be available online, but I think to meet the needs and requirements of law and what the taxpayer should be burdened with, for 7 hours, we should have no issues with doing this online. So I'm going to make an amendment to remove that $10,000.
A motion and a second. I have two people in the queue. Commissioner Harrison, is that to this issue?
Not this amendment, no, sir.
County Commissioner Jones, is it to this issue? Okay, go ahead. You're the only one.
If it's to remove that amount of money, then I would like to learn more about it before we voted on that. But because I know, for instance, Commissioner Boyd, she has gone to some trainings for certain licenses or certificates to be able to serve in different capacities. And I don't know that some of those things are available without traveling. I don't know what the proper amount to change that to would be. I'd be okay with looking into that, but as far as just cutting it out without knowing what that is, I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that tonight.
Finance Director. Finance Director.
It was on another matters about the.
Okay. Commissioner Schoaf.
We can be for, we can be against. I just want to be clear. We're talking about $10,000 in a $300 million budget, so let's do this.
Commissioner Becker? Pardon?
Mine's on the main motion, not the amendment.
All right, Commissioner Schmidt, is this on the amendment?
This is on Commissioner from the 15th District. I want to just say I appreciate you looking out for that because you and I did talk about that, I think last year, somewhere around there, and we both agreed that this was a waste of taxpayer money, that this can be taken online, so I appreciate that. there's a good use of that money we can do tonight. Josh Sudduth's department was asking for approximately, I think, around $9,000 to train his department. And you want to talk about an example of great work for the citizens, ask anybody in my district that lives near Adeline Acres how fast his team goes out there and responds to concerns. Do they get the answers they want right away? No. But the point is, I think we can take that $10,000 and move it, if we want to make good use of it, move it over to Mr. Sudduth's department and get more bang for our buck. And to your point, we can take this stuff online, so that's what we should be doing. We get a $500 a month stipend. You know, knock yourselves out. You want to go take a trip and stay at a hotel and take a class, go for it, as long as it's on the $500 a month stipend that you take. Thank you.
All right, now, we're talking about this amendment to the budget, so please remove your name from the queue at this time if it's anything other than that. Commissioner Pomeroy.
Yeah, I want to be clear. I do think it's silly that, especially from a commission that has prided itself on how every penny counts and what we hold up, that those are the same, some of the same people that would want us to be paid back to do something that's available for free. However, this nitpicking, we'll be here all night. We just say, if we do something with this, we just saved you the equivalent of half a Nicaraguan Cordoba. I mean, you people, I mean, we laugh, but we've had a good budget committee. They've ran. I really hope that we're not going to sit here and try to pick at $10,000. It's not good use of the talent. I mean, we could all do it. Everybody in this room could go and say, this $5,000 could be spent here, this $10,000. And if you added all that up, you would get to about a half a penny of this total budget. So let's just try to not do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Jones.
I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I agree with my fellow Commissioner Pomeroy here. I think we should not be nitpicking this because we don't understand what the amount is. I don't believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Budget Chairman, it's not $10,000 that was spent that we're saving. It's an allocation of up to $10,000. We don't know what was actually spent last year, but it was a very small amount because we all know that nobody really traveled. And I know some of these classes are not available online, to Commissioner Wynn's point. Some of these classes are necessary to get the correct certificates and licensures to be heads of some of these committees or do some of the things that some of the commissioners want to do. So by cutting $10,000, we're not saving anything. I'm amenable to change it, but we don't know what it should be to. So I just say we leave it alone. So I would ask that the maker of the motion just retract it till we learn more about what it was actually spent last year, because I know it wasn't $10,000.
Commissioner Bergdorf.
Thank you, Chairman. I had asked Budget Chairman Schoaf that this be put back in the budget because I am one who believes that it is not a bad thing to get extra education, especially since so many of us are new to this job. I felt that I needed more than the 7 hours that are free that I have never charged to the county. So I did sign up to take the CCFO classes because it helps me understand budget, governmental budgeting, et cetera. And I feel like it helps me to be better at my job representing the citizens of this county. I don't need the money, but I know that there might be people in this commission who could use the money and the funding to further their education to do good work for the citizens of this county. So I will not support the amendment to take the $10,000 out, and not because I need the money, and probably not because Mrs. Boyd needs the money, but because I don't want anyone to feel like they cannot go do a thing because they cannot afford it. Thank you.
Commissioner Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, you know, we look over our previous budgets, and I think the question was asked, didn't know how much money was spent. Well, we know how much was reimbursed. It was zero. So this is a new line item, and I I don't want to get into nickel and dime and 10,000 here. I mean, to Commissioner Palmer's point, that's not the point of it. But I think that, again, let's hold ourselves to the same standard that we're asking everybody else to abide to. A lot of folks have been asked to tighten the belt. We got to cut, trim. So this is just one where I view it as an unnecessary expense. I can appreciate Commissioner Bergdorf sentiment on wanting to educate. I think it's highly important that we should all seek that. I look for classes to take that I feel will help me in my role. And if those are at a place where I need to travel, and that's my choice, I would need to do that. But I don't expect taxpayers to pay for that when it is not a requirement. 7 hours is the requirement. So I think that, obviously learning as much as we can is a good thing, but I think whenever we're asking the taxpayers to pay for that is not a good use. I think we can do better. If we have a personal preference or decision that there's a certification or licensure that we're seeking, then that just needs to come out of our own pocket. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Brown?
I have also used my money to go on these things. A lot of times you have to go to a class in order to get questions answered. And first time I paid about $700 and something out of my own pocket. Second time I stayed at a cheaper hotel because I didn't go to the one that they recommended and didn't have to pay that much. Paid about $400. But this is, again, something, as an educator, former educator, we should all be trying to learn as much as we can. Now, last year, it wasn't in the budget. And it has been added. There was nothing paid out. I have not asked for anything from the government of this county to reimburse my expenses, but it's there if somebody is needing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Wright?
Just because that money is there doesn't mean it has to be spent. I would much rather that money be there and us not need it than for us to need it and it not be there. Thank you.
All right, Madam Clerk, place it on the board. Yes.
Remove, and a no vote is to keep it. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, remove. Red, no. That was your request, was it not, Commissioner? Okay. All right.
Each commissioner record your vote.
All right, 14 votes to leave it as it is. All right, Commissioner Schoaf, go ahead.
We are back on the main.
Commissioner Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make an amendment. I'd like to move to amend the budget to approve the sheriff's budget, sheriff's office budget, to the budget as it was originally presented to the Budget Committee by the late Sheriff Sonny Weatherford.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion? I'm assuming the people in the queue now want to speak to this. Commissioner Becker?
No, mine's on the main motion. I got a different amendment.
Point of information, Mr. Chairman. How does that differ from what's in the budget currently?
Mr. Chairman.
It's a considerable difference, Mr. Chairman, and we'd have to go back to figure out what his original was. I mean, it's been changed a couple times. I just want to know, and maybe I'll use that to make this comment. I'm going to be against this, and it's not because I'm necessarily against any changes. I made motions for several changes for the sheriff's department while we were in committee. However, when I made the change to the tax levy earlier, we have the ability to fix this post this meeting. I've spoken with Deputy Sheriff Craddock. I've spoken with Chief Poss. I've spoken with the county mayor about this. Everybody was fine with that. So I'm going to be against this. It's not that I'm necessarily against the changes, but the reason we set aside that half penny earlier is to deal with those requests in our next meeting. So that's where I'm at. And I would urge everybody to take that same path. And my rationale is that we can get this over the hump. We can make some of these, the amendments are relatively around the edges, but if we open them up, we start opening up the one, we'll end up opening up all of them tonight. And it will be an arduous process, something that we could fix relatively simply moving forward. That's my rationale.
All right. Commissioner Wright.
I will be voting with my conscience tonight, and for the folks of District 2, some of the items that were removed from this budget were very important personnel that needed to be added, and also some pay increases for people that had transferred in from other departments. Whenever we have someone move in, whenever we hire someone from a different department that has 20-plus years of experience, we're not paying for that experience. We're getting it for free. That experience and training costs money that we don't have to pay for, but they still need to be reimbursed and paid for what they're worth. Thank you.
Commissioner Becker.
I'm just still in the queue for the main motion. I just don't want to lose my spot. So nothing.
Commissioner Teachner.
Chairman Hyde, I just had a question. We said a significant amount. What would that be, just a ballpark? Is it are we talking almost $1 million possibly, almost $10 million? Just ballpark.
I'll ask the budget chairman to respond to you on that.
There are several issues with this. I don't know what the definition of the original ask were. So there have been a couple iterations of the budget. So we are not prepared to give a good answer on that. There are some requested amendments that I have received and I have looked at. These are different from the original requests, but I think these are some numbers that have come back after some additional analysis by each of the departments. That's why I set aside the extra half penny, so we can kind of think through this rationally, and we have a little bit of cushion in order to do it, so that we don't have to do all this. And I can't answer that question right now, and I want to be able to answer that question well with some thought, which is why I want to set the penny aside, or the half penny aside, which we did and we all voted on, and do this in a following cycle.
Commissioner Becker. Pardon me, Commissioner Rogers.
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that, and by the way, I appreciate Commissioner Harrison's motion, but however, my suggestion would be is to wait till after the 26th, and when that position is filled, there may be some changes that new Sheriff Craddock may want to make at that time, and then I think we need to be plausible to hear what his request would be at that time.
Commissioner Becker?
No.
Okay.
Still in the queue.
All right, clerk, place that on the board, please. All right, Commissioner Harrison, could you do that for us?
Sure. To amend the budget to approve the sheriff's portion of this budget to what the late Sheriff Weatherford originally presented to the Budget Committee, and obviously that would have been in the initial budget hearings. So that's my motion.
Well, you just are voting to do the original request, and we don't have a dollar amount on that now. All right, we'll place Commissioner Becker. All right. All right, well, let's place it on the board before Commissioner Becker gets back in. Okay, if the clerk doesn't know what we're voting on, I sure don't know what we're voting on, okay? All right, we're voting for the original budget of the sheriff. I'm assuming that's correct. Is that not right? Okay, all right. Instead of waiting to have it done in budget procedures. All right, and a yes would be to restore it, a no would be to wait and go through budget.
Each commissioner record your vote.
Okay, with 17 votes no, that does not succeed. Let me remind commissioners, really, seriously, it looks like from the votes that I'm seeing that the proposal that was made by the budget chairman to begin with, setting money aside, you voted to do that, to go through the budget process might be the best method for a good, clear decision on things. So please keep that in mind before we go through this until midnight, okay? Commissioner Becker.
Thank you. Been waiting here all night. I'm just kidding. I would like to make an amendment, and I believe I'm accurate here, to move the grant admin from the finance director department back to the planning department.
All right, there's a motion and a second. We will put that on the board at this time.
Each commissioner records your vote.
With 12 affirmative votes, that fails. Commissioner Mansfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will say I'm proud of the work that the Budget Committee did for many months, many dozens of hours, to try to bring a lot of our county employees up to market and parity in their pay scales. I think we've done a good job in doing that. We definitely have, there's been a lot of increases across the board, especially for public safety. In this budget, 29% increase for Sheriff's Office, $5.1 million more this year than last year. 22% increase for ambulance service, that's $3 million. 52% increase in rural fire protection, and 19% increase for corrections officers at $2.75 million. You look at what we've done in 2 years, it's 48% increase for the Sheriff's Office, 33% increase for ambulance services, and 52% increase for corrections. So I'm very happy of a lot of things that are in this budget. I was on the Budget Committee. I voted for most. I voted for this budget to move forward. I am saddened that I'm not going to be able to vote yes on this entire budget because I'm against the $5.4 million. It violates my conscience, to be honest with you, Mr. Chairman. I feel it's an immoral vote. I feel it's forged in lies and is not something that I can do based on my conscience. I would love it if there would be somebody willing to make a motion on the prevailing side to reconsider the vote to accept that, to defer that vote till September, because I would have loved to have been able to vote yes on this budget without that a part of it right now, and that happened later. So I don't know if somebody's willing to make that motion to reconsider, to move that capital vote until the next meeting or the next month, so that we can vote on these budgets cleanly without that. Because I would love to vote yes on this budget, but I just can't do that at this time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Seeing no one in the queue, I'm asking the clerk to place the budgets on the board.
Each commissioner record your vote.
Is this county and school or just one?
County.
This is just county. Okay, thank you.
And that passes. All right, Commissioner Sho.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a new motion, excuse me, this will be a new motion because we voted to sever this. So this is to accept the school budget, and I would just note here that this is just the 7.5 million change. We've already voted for the one time. That's my motion.
Motion and a second by Commissioner Pomeroy.
Just the 7 point, just the one.
Commissioner Teachner.
I'm going to abstain from this vote just because I feel like that's the most ethical thing I can do. Thank you so much.
All right. I'll ask that be put on the board. Commissioner Mansfield.
Same thing here, Mr. Chairman. I mean, I supported the $7.5 million for the schools. I did not support the $5.4 million in capital, and the reason it's giving. I don't think I can vote for this budget with a clean conscience. I was hoping to be able to vote on both of these budgets tonight. I'm sure the narrative is going to be that I hate schools, I hate children, and voted against teachers, and I didn't. I voted twice for the raises. Fortunately, I can't separate what they're going to get from this budget, and I only have one choice and one voice, and it's an up or down. And unfortunately, this would have been hopefully my first school board budget in 6 years to vote for, and this would be 6 years in the running. 2019, I voted against tax increases, and they said it was for teachers and that I hated teachers, and wasn't true. And I think 21 or 22, we voted for more for the school's budget, but I just couldn't vote because of things that are in there that I didn't agree with. I hate that it comes down to this way that we don't get a chance to separate out things and argue on that side. I wish I could vote for this. I do support the teachers getting raises and the classified staff. I did support that in budget, but I just can't support the entire school budget as a whole with $450 million in it in total. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Hyde, I'm sorry, I was caught off guard by the laughter when I said I was wanting to be ethical, but the thing I was just going to say is it's because my wife would directly benefit from this, and so I just don't feel, it's just not the right thing for me to do. And my wife works for the school district. Just wanted to make sure, just in case somebody didn't know that. Most people should. That's what I'm declaring, and I'm going to abstain. I just explained though, Mr. Hyde, I don't believe it's ethical for me to vote for it. Thank you.
Well, I support this budget. I support the school budget. And when I support something, I vote for it. So I hope a lot of people here tonight have heard a lot of people say they support a lot of stuff. But most of the time when you support something, you vote for it. So I support it, and I'm voting for it. Thank you.
All right, seeing no one else in the queue, Commissioner Teachner.
I was going to say, sorry, I was going to say one more thing. If this passes, just so y'all know, you're giving my household a raise, and I want to thank you for the abstention. So I just want to understand, that's the ethic part. That's why I feel like that would be wrong for me to vote for a raise. I don't know.
And also, I would say that even though I am a retired teacher, in case anyone would wonder about how we voted, my conscience. Okay, anyone else wanting to declare? All right, we're ready to vote if you'll place that on the board.
Each commissioner record your vote.
And that passes with 16 votes, okay?
Nope, we got
No,
one
no,
left.
no.
We got one left.
That's what?
Motion to approve nonprofit donation.
Motion and second, all in favor say
Aye.
aye.
Motion.